Hello everyone, welcome to our audiobook channel. If you enjoy this story or want to hear more exciting content, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Your feedback helps us improve and bring even more captivating stories. Yes, we invite you to listen to part 1 of the series. Enjoy listening. Chapter 1, Chapter 1, Chapter 1, Little Girl. Chapter 1, Chapter 1, Little Girl. Starting a new story, the little rural blessing has a cheat, those interested can have a look. Another girl. Chen Fangshi disgustedly shoved the newborn baby into her son's hands, snorted, and left the room. Once she got to the kitchen and saw 2 bowls of brown sugar poached eggs on the stove, her anger was barely restrained. She picked up a bowl and poured it into the pot, then said to her daughter-in-law, "First take this bowl of sugary eggs to your 4th aunt-in-law, your 2nd sister-in-law won't be able to eat right now, so we'll wait until she's hungry. The one in the pot, just add some water and boil it, then dole it out to cheer and song her." "Yes, mother," said Zhao's with joy, quickly picking up a bowl of sugary eggs and heading for the second room. She lifted the curtain and saw her brother-in-law standing at the door, holding the newborn girl, his face an unreadable mix of grimness and confusion. She handed the sugary eggs to the midwife who was cleaning up her medicine box, and said, "4th aunt, eat first." Without any hesitation, Aunt Wu took the bowl and quickly ate the 6 poached eggs, then downed the entire bowl of brown sugar water. After wiping her mouth, she stood up, grabbed her medicine box, and said, "I am going now. Let your 2nd sister-in-law massage her abdomen later to get rid of the lochia. If there's anything, just call me. We're not far." Zhao hurriedly said, "Okay, thank you very much, 4th aunt. I'll have Big Brother send you off soon." Wu 4th aunt slung her medicine box over her shoulder, gave Chen Ergu, expressionlessly standing there, a meaningful look, then lifted the curtain and left with Zhao. The woman lying on the bed turned her head, pulled the quilt over her face, and started crying. The man holding the swaddle purse looked grim, his face terrifyingly dark. He already had 2 daughters and never expected that this time it would also be a girl, which made Chen Chongping both angry and embarrassed. Among his 3 brothers, his older brother already had 2 sons, and even the one who just got married last year had a son, but his own family had 3 girls in a row. No, it was 4 births. More than a year ago, that one, only born for a while, had her face covered by accident during his wife's deep sleep at night, and by the next day she was gone. That was also a daughter. Chen Chongping could only feel his head buzzing. He was mortified. As the saying goes, there are 3 unfilial conducts, with no offspring being the greatest. Was his second family going to end his lineage? Thinking of the strange gazes he might receive from relatives and friends, the oblique insinuations from his parents, as well as the various gossip and innuendos, Chen Chongping felt like his blood was running backwards. Looking at the baby in his hands again, he was filled with disgust. He turned around and left the house. The sunset was everywhere at this time, with a few passers-by on the road. Chen Chongping tucked the tiny swaddle into his wide sleeve and walked quickly towards the back mountain. The infant in his sleeve moved her little head a few times and her mouth twitched twice before falling back to sleep quietly. Standing next to the hill for a moment, he still felt it was too close to the mountain road and not hidden enough. If this little bastard was picked up by a passing villager and brought back to the village for everyone to know, it would not be good. Everyone knew his wife had just given birth, and it would be easy for people to guess it was their child that was abandoned. After thinking for a while, Chen Chongping walked a few dozen steps further in before taking the swaddle out and placing it in a patch of grass. Still standing a while longer, and clenching his palm, in the end, he didn't dare to strangle the baby girl. Well, maybe she'll be carried away by a wild wolf overnight, and he wouldn't have to bear the guilt of killing a girl. Looking around and seeing no one, Chen Chongping turned around and hurried down the mountain. During the late spring, the wild peach trees all over the mountain shed their flowers and were hung with fuzzy little fruits. The wild cherries were already ripe, their stalks attached to branches, red and yellow, looking especially tempting. In Dongchen village, by the Chuanha River, several women are pounding cloves and washing vegetables. Did you hear? Jiang Sanlang's family found a girl yesterday. Who knows whose child was abandoned? TSK, the umbilical cord wasn't even detached. Really? Did you see it with your own eyes, Auntie Air? A woman seemed not to believe it. Who would abandon a child these days? It's not like we're in a famine and can't afford to raise them. Isn't that the truth? I went to their house to borrow a bucket this morning and saw it with my own eyes. Aunt Wang Ersan wrung the clothes in her hand, threw them into the basket, and said, her whole face was red and swollen, said it was bitten by ants, tsk. Oh dear, it's such a sin. Another woman leaned in to ask, where was she found? No idea, Jiang Sanlang's family simply won't tell. Aunt Wang glanced around, a gossipy look on her face, probably from one of the nearby villages. I wonder which family is so disgraceful. Absolutely. The women knocked their washing sticks on clothing, a flurry of noise. Anyway, she's not from our village. We only have about 20 households in our village. Everyone would know if a woman so much as farted, let alone gave birth to a child. One woman said. The crowd burst into laughter. Certainly, no one in our village would be that heartless. Aunt Wang pursed her lips. What's unfortunate is that the baby is a girl. If it were a boy, Su Chunyang would be relieved. Jiang Sanlang had been married to Su Chunyang for 10 years without a single child, which had nearly infuriated his mother to death. The women looked at each other, breaking into knowing laughter. Yes, yes. It's to Jiang Sanlang's credit that he hasn't divorced his wife after all these years. Indeed, if it were my family, constant nagging would ensue every day. A wife without a child wouldn't last 3 years in my family, let alone 10. Absolutely. The crowd agreed. One woman knocked her washing stick and said, Chunyang is lucky to have a husband who cares for her. Without Jiang Sanlang's protection, she would have long been divorced by his mother. Yes, what a shame Jiang Sanlang is such a talented man, both cultured and strong. I am afraid there might be no continuation of his lineage. Another woman sighed. Who can disagree? The women sighed collectively, sometimes feeling sorry for Jiang Sanlang, sometimes envying Su Chunyang for having a handsome and caring husband. The thought of their own husbands, whose unkempt beards and body odor were sources of displeasure, resulted in an acrid taste in their mouths. A baby girl is not so bad. A woman wringing clothes said, how does the saying go? Raising a daughter brings a son. This baby girl might bring Jiang Sanlang a chubby baby boy. That's not necessarily true. A woman retorted. Why not? Isn't that exactly what happened to Chen Ergu's family in West Village? Their daughter-in-law didn't have a child for 3 years until his old mother adopted a baby girl. Guess what? Less than 2 years later, Ergu's wife was pregnant. Yes, I heard about that. It truly happened. Yes, even the girl might be adopted by Jiang Sanlang from somewhere else, claiming it as a foundling. He probably feigned her origin to avoid being ridiculed if she didn't bring them a child. Haha, that's also a possibility. After a round of gossip, the women finished washing the clothes, packed their baskets, and returned home. Dongchen Village, Jiang family. Jiang Sanlang walked into the house with a bowl of sheep milk and told his wife, older brother's sheep just had lambs yesterday, so I milked some to feed the baby. Oh, what a coincidence. Su Chunyang rejoiced, now the baby has milk to drink. They were worried about what to feed the child, but it turned out that the ewe, his elder brother bought earlier that year, had just given birth. She placed the swaddled baby on the bed, covered it with a thin blanket, rolled up her sleeves to take the bowl, and told her husband, I'll go boil it. You look after her, she was crying a lot earlier. Jiang Sanlang passed the clay bowl into his wife's hand, looked at the baby on the bed, and the more he looked, the more attached he became. She must be hungry, she has only had some sugar water since yesterday. The baby on the bed opened her eyes slightly and suddenly smiled at him. Oh, our daughter knows how to smile. Jiang Sanlang was thrilled, touched his stubble, and proudly said, our daughter recognizes her dad. Stop talking nonsense. Su Chunyang shot a glance at him, she is so little. How could she possibly recognize you? Jiang Sanlang chuckled, you never know, our daughter is very smart. Yesterday, the moment I picked her up, she stopped crying and just kept shedding tears, as if she was grievously wronged. Thinking of the baby girl's pitiful face, Jiang Sanlang's heart ached. He reached out to touch her head and sighed. Who would be so heartless to abandon a newborn baby girl on a grave mound? They clearly wanted the child to die. If he hadn't passed by and heard a baby's cry in the graveyard, the baby would most likely have been eaten by snakes, rats, and ants in another day or two. If you didn't want to raise a child, you could give her away. Why kill her? It's all right now, you're my, Jiang San's, true daughter from now on. Jiang Sanlang picked up the baby and held her close to his chest. As long as I have something to eat, you will never go hungry. Chapter 2, Chapter 2, Chapter 2, Rebirth. Chapter 2, Chapter 2, Rebirth. The milk in the clay pot has boiled. Su Chunyang removes the skin from the milk with a spoon. Once it has cooled down, she carries the baby and feeds her spoonful by spoonful. The little girl doesn't rush or fuss, swallowing mouthful after mouthful. Once she is almost full, she closes her mouth tightly and closes her eyelids, looking like she wants to sleep. After using a handkerchief to clean the corners of the baby girl's mouth, Su Chunyang lightly pats her back to burp her. She looks up at her husband and says, "Sanlang, let's name her." Jiang Sanlang scratches his head, but can't think of a good character even after racking his brain. Why not ask Uncle Chen Sanyo? I can't think of a good name at the moment. Uncle Chen Sanyo, also known as Chen Suanjing, is the respected village head of Dongchen village. He has a rudimentary knowledge of literature and calligraphy, and has named many children in the village. Su Chunyang shakes her head, no need to trouble him. She doesn't want the news of them adopting a child to spread throughout the village. Although they cannot keep this a secret, it's better to keep a low profile. Once the baby grows up, people will become accustomed to it. How about we call her Ingbao? Su Chunyang gently rubs her daughter's little face and suggests, "She's the treasure you found when you went to pick cherries at North Mountain." "Good, let's call her Ingbao." Jiang Sanlang slaps his thigh, laughing and agreeing, "Chunyang, you're right. She's the treasure I found while picking cherries." Hee hee, this name is good. It's auspicious. In the blink of an eye, it is spring again after fall and winter. In the full bloom of spring, little Ingbao is now 11 months old. She can not only crawl, but also walk a few steps with the support of a wall. "Dad." Ingbao holds onto the wall with one hand and opens the other to Jiang Sanlang, who has just entered the house. "Pick up." She can speak now, but can only utter one or two words disjointedly. "Oh, Ingbao, are you learning to walk? Tired? Come, see what Dad has brought for you." Jiang Sanlang takes out a somewhat wrinkly green and red fruit from his bosom and dangles it in his hand. He bends down to his daughter and teases, "Do you want to eat it? It's sweet and fragrant." Ingbao's eyes light up, and she reaches out her chubby little hand to hold it, making a sound that indicates her approval. It's a large apple. Although its appearance is not very good, it's still a rare sight in rural areas during this season. "Where did you get it?" Su Chunyang glances at it while she's sitting next to him, busily stitching a shoe sole. Jiang Sanlang gives a mischievous smile, bends down to pick up his daughter and sits next to his wife. "Mother gave it to me. She couldn't bear to eat it and secretly gave it to me. She said it's for Ingbao to sweeten her mouth." Su Chunyang gives her husband a disdainful glare. "Isn't this the annual gift that your eldest sister-in-law gave your parents? You actually brought it home. We have already separated from the family. It won't sound good if outsiders see it. His eldest brother's family also has children. If the sister-in-law finds out that mother-in-law secretly gave an apple to her third son, who knows what she would think? What's the big deal? I didn't ask for it. How can I not accept it when mother gives it to me? Gifts from elders should not be declined. Don't you understand?" Jiang Sanlang doesn't care at all. Seeing that his daughter can't bite open the apple skin with her little teeth, he takes it and nibbles off a circle of skin before returning it to her hands. Ingbao. She lowers her head to look at the bitten and irregular apple, and suddenly can't bring herself to eat it. "Why aren't you eating?" Jiang Sanlang scratches her little nose and laughs. "Have you grown tired of your father?" Ingbao blinks and shakes her head, "Not tired." She takes a big bite and then removes it from her mouth to stuff it into her father's mouth. "Dad, eat." Jiang Sanlang bursts into laughter and takes a bite of the apple that Ingbao hands him as a token of filial piety. Su Chunyang also laughs. She gently strokes her daughter's fluffy little head. Our Ingbao is really filial. She knows to give the first bite to her father. Ingbao nods her little head affirmatively. "Filial. Daddy, Mommy." She takes another bite and then hands it to Chunyang. "Ha ha ha, good girl. Jiang Sanlang laughs heartily. When your mother and I get old, we can count on Ingbao to look after us. Ingbao shakes her head, holding her chubby little hand up towards her mother, brother. Ingbao. Take care. What is Ingbao saying? Jiang Sanlang doesn't understand what his daughter is saying, so he laughs and asks. Ingbao gets down from her father's knee, wobbles over to Su Chunyang, and jumps into her mother's arms. She touches her mother's belly and says, brother. Mom, brother. It seems Jiang Sanlang now understands what she means. Is her daughter trying to say that she has a baby brother in her belly? How is that possible? Su Chunyang was also dumbfounded. She rubbed her belly and asked with a smile, Ingbao, are you saying that there's a little brother in mommy's belly? Yes. Ingbao earnestly nodded, and placed her small hand on her mother's belly, insisting, baby brother. Two of them. Jiang Sanlang was stunned, suddenly recalling how his wife had an ongoing lack of appetite and was often dry-heaving these past few days. Could it be? Could it be? His eyes suddenly lit up with surprise. He grabbed his wife's arm and suggested, you've been complaining about digestive problems these past few days. What if we go see a midwife? Su Chunyang was also taken aback and murmured, that's impossible. She'd been married for nearly 11 years, nearly 30 years old, how could she possibly be pregnant? Jiang Sanlang urgently helped his wife stand, seeing a doctor won't hurt, even if you're not pregnant, we should still have a checkup. You've been unable to eat properly for days, that's not good. Su Chunyang contemplated then nodded, then let's go. We certainly can't make it today, let's go to the town tomorrow. Yes, yes. Jiang Sanlang hoisted up his daughter and spun her around joyously. He was so happy his smile reached his eyes, good girl, tomorrow daddy and mommy will take you to the town to play. Su Chunyang chuckled lightly, folding up her shoe soles, let's have soup biscuits for dinner and make a steamed egg custard for Ingbao. Midwife old Zhang lived in town, about 5 or 6 li away from Dongchen village, a half-hour's walk. Jiang Sanlang did not want to tire his wife and planned on borrowing a donkey from Chen Cuanjing as a ride. No, Su Chunyang was a little embarrassed, let's just walk, it's not like I can't manage. Zhang midwife was well known in town, the widely recognized go-to midwife within a radius of several li. Those who went there for consultations were either pregnant or hoping to be. In past years, she'd gone there several times for consultation, taken a lot of medicine, but there was still no movement in her womb. If she goes again this time and truly is pregnant, well and good, but if she's not, who knows how others would laugh at her. All right then. Jiang Sanlang held his daughter with one hand and helped his wife with the other, just be careful. Su Chunyang chuckled and pushed her husband's hand away, I was carrying water just yesterday, and today I suddenly can't walk anymore. Jiang Sanlang awkwardly withdrew his hand, held his daughter tightly, and whispered, you shouldn't do it anymore, wait for me to do everything. He'd been busy in the fields during the spring planting season. He would leave before daybreak and only return after dark. He was even eating his meals in the fields, which were brought by his wife. Naturally, he didn't have time to fetch water for the house. However, from then on, he could rise half an hour earlier, ensuring to fill the water vat before going to work. Su Chunyang smiled at her husband and rubbed her belly, her heart full of trepidation. Ingbao blinked her eyes, first at her dad, then at her mom, and smiled sweetly. How wonderful, mother is pregnant with baby brother. Their family is finally reunited. Ingbao hugged her father's neck tightly, her mind returning to the red birthmark on her wrist. It was this birthmark that had forever parted her from her mom, dad, and younger brother. She'll have to figure out how to get rid of it. Before then, she must carefully hide it and not let others see it. She definitely didn't want to be recognized and taken back by that family, to endure the torment, deceit, and murder again. In her previous life, she struggled for over a decade to survive, yet only lived until she was 21. Just when she thought she'd finally escaped to taste the sweetness of life, her biological parents suddenly tracked her down and jointly strangled her to death. She clearly remembered her biological mother, tight-lipped and gritting her teeth while cursing as she tightened the rope, "You disaster star. Evil wench. How dare you live? How can you still live?" The intensity with which Han family's matriarch was exerting herself twisted her face and frothed her mouth. She looked like a terrifying demon. Even now, the memory of the choking pain as the rope tightened around her throat, the head-splitting pressure as her brain struggled for oxygen, and the profound despair and anger caused her to tremble uncontrollably. Chapter 3, Chapter 3, Chapter 3, Grotto. Chapter 3, Chapter 3, Grotto. Ing Bao has died once and reincarnated back to when Daddy Jiang first found her. She felt both fortunate and fearful. She was glad to be back with her parents, once again being a worry-free and cherished baby. But she was afraid that, in a few years, she'd be claimed by that family again and forced once more down the path of her previous life. In this era of ceremonial laws binding monarchs and ministers, fathers and sons, she was just a woman with no rights, restrained by kinship, filial piety, and societal norms, with no way to protect herself. Even if her biological father had once abandoned her and never raised her, as long as they came to claim her, everyone would take morality as their high ground, accuse her with blood ties, suppress her with filial piety, and even the prefectural government office sided with them. In her previous life, she had already seen those people's true colors. If she had to live again, she vowed not to compromise even if she had to die once more. What nonsense about the debt of life being greater than the sky. What kind of favor did she owe to people who schemed against her and intended to harm her? Ing Bao closed her eyes, and her consciousness instantly entered a cave. This was her territory, a magical place she accidentally discovered in her previous life, a mysterious cave. The cave was about 10 square feet in size, with an almond-shaped large pool in the middle that took up about 6 or 7/10 of the cave. The pool water was clear, sweet and slightly blue. In the middle of the pool was a large spherical object emitting a golden light like the sun. This was completely different from the cave in her previous life. She remembered when she was 18 years old, just escaped from the army commander's residence, disguised as a beggar, hiding everywhere. One day, she was shivering inside a statue niche in a dilapidated temple. The temple was drafty and chilling to the bone. She was feverish and somewhat delirious. Pictures flitted through her delirium. Consciousness suddenly entered this strange cave. Back then the cave had nothing but thick ice, making her think she had fallen into an ice hole. Unexpectedly, in this rebirth, the ice in the cave melted and disappeared. There was an additional pool in the cave, and there was a glowing sphere in the center of the pool. It looked extraordinary at a glance. Ing Bao came to the edge of the pool and buried the apple seeds she had brought in yesterday into the soft black soil by the pool. This black soil, 3 feet wide, circled the pool. At a glance, it looked like someone had drawn a black eyeliner around the pool with a brush. This strange place perfectly matched the description of the mysterious caves in the storybooks. So Ing Bao wanted to test whether this black soil was also as described in the storybooks, possessing magical functions and able to grow anything planted within. If one day an apple tree truly grew from it, then her family would have sweet, big apples to eat in the future. After burying the seeds and watering them several times, Ing Bao's consciousness began to blur and soon fell asleep. When she opened her eyes again, she found herself in the midwife's house, with the midwife taking her mother's pulse. Zhang the midwife was over 70, her white hair neatly tied behind her head. A silver hairpin was inserted in her bun, the tassel on the head of the pin swaying gently with her movements. It was said that this old woman had worked at the county government office when she was young, doing the work of a midwife. Later, when she got older, she returned to her hometown to retire. She was very skilled at handling pregnancies and childbirth, as well as treating some complex diseases in women, so many people respected her and sought her for treatment. How is it? Jiang Sanlang couldn't help but ask. Zhang the midwife released her pulse-taking fingers and turned to smile. Congratulations, your wife has a happy pulse. She's about 3 months pregnant. Ah. Really? You're not joking with me, are you? Jiang Sanlang spoke excitedly and incoherently, somewhat incredulous. Would I joke about this? The midwife stood with a smile, took out a stethoscope from her medical box, and said to Su family's wife, "Third mistress, follow me. I will let you listen to the baby's breath." Oh. Su's wife got up, glanced at her husband, and followed the midwife into the back room. Before long, the midwife emerged, cheerful, and said, "Oh my, Sanlang, your wife is carrying twins." Ah. Jiang Sanlang exclaimed in surprise, is it really twins? Yes. The midwife put away her stethoscope and, with a glance at Jiang Sanlang, advised him in a soft voice, "Your wife is almost 30, isn't she? And this being her first pregnancy, you must take extra precautions." "Yes, yes." Jiang Sanlang grew even more anxious, stuttering, "Well, what precautions should I take? What should I do?" The midwife wiped her hands on a cloth and, upon seeing that the lady from the Su family had finished tidying her clothes and was coming out from the inner room, she continued, "Let your wife eat well, including meat and eggs, and do not strain herself with heavy duties. When she is 7 or 8 months along, she should eat less rice and more vegetables to facilitate delivery." "Oh, I see," Jiang Sanlang hastily acknowledged. "And remember, when she is nearing full term, find a competent midwife in good time. Don't leave it until it's too late. Twins are a different matter entirely from a single baby. You mustn't be careless," cautioned the midwife, her tone solemn and earnest. "Yes, yes." Jiang Sanlang fervently nodded his head in agreement. Upon leaving the midwife's abode, Jiang Sanlang was still somewhat dazed. Carrying one daughter in one arm, he held his wife's hand with the other and spoke softly, "Let's go buy 2 pounds of brown sugar, and measure out some rice to make porridge for you." Unfortunately, there was no market today and the butcher shops in the town had closed early, otherwise, he could have bought some pork to take home. "Rice is expensive, we have only a bit of money left at home. Let's not waste it unnecessarily." Chun Yang grumbled, "It's just the beginning of spring, there are still several months until harvest." Jiang Sanlang looked at his wife sympathetically and reassured her, "Don't worry, once we finish planting our fields, I will go to the county to find work. I'm sure I can find something." "It's not as easy as that." Chun Yang sighed, "The county is a long way away. Where will you stay? Will you end up sleeping in a dilapidated temple like last time?" Last year after the harvest, Sanlang and 2 other villagers went to the county in search of work. They couldn't find anything and were nearly beaten to death by a gang of local ruffians. Chen Tsuanjing's nephew had been the worst off, he still couldn't do heavy work to this day. Jiang Sanlang scratched his head, "We definitely need to purchase rice and brown sugar. The midwife said that you should eat fine nutritious food. And when we get home, we can slaughter one of our old hens to make soup. We only have 2 hens left, and they're laying eggs now. We can't afford to slaughter one." The Su family wife interrupted her husband's incessant rambling, "Without hens to lay eggs, what will Tian Tian eat?" "Ah yes, he, Tian Tian does need to have an egg custard every day, I forgot." Jiang Sanlang scratched his head and laughed foolishly. Tian Tian blinked her eyes, too, was at a loss. Their home was poor, comprised of 3 thatch huts and a small kitchen, with a bamboo fence enclosing it. Just like in their previous lives, there was barely any furniture in the house. As for food, they had just enough to eat. She had once looked inside the jar where they kept their food. There was only a thin layer of wheat in there. Even the least appetizing millet, they only had about 1 stone measurement left, just enough to sustain the family until the harvest. The 2 hens at home were probably their most valuable possessions right now. Being small and delicate herself, with weak legs and speech difficulties, she couldn't help her parents and depended on them to look after her. Tian Tian was worried, her little face creased with concern. Her mother was pregnant with her brother and needed more nutrition. How could she eat only wheat and millet? Suddenly, an idea flashed through her mind. Wasn't there a river to the west of the village? Even though the current was strong, there would be fish in the river. "Daddy, fishing," she decided to give her doting father a hint. "Without meat, Mommy can eat fish." As long as they could borrow a fishing net, they should be able to catch some fish and shrimp. Chapter 4, Chapter 4, Chapter 4, A Book. Chapter 4, Chapter 4, A Book. What? Jiang Sanlang, as ever, was puzzled by his daughter's speech. "Fish, fish." Ing Bao was exhausted. "Fish, fish." Spring Lady laughed and acted as a translator, "The little miss is asking for fish." Ing Bao kept nodding in agreement. Her beautiful mother was indeed intelligent. Ha, so Ing Bao wants to eat fish. Jiang Sanlang suddenly understood, "Once Daddy is home, I will go and catch one from the river." Ing Bao. Having bought brown sugar and a measure of rice, and spent 10 coins on a bamboo basket to hold things, he had spent almost all of his remaining money. Jiang Sanlang put his daughter in the bamboo basket on his back, held his wife's hand and happily rushed home. Once home, he placed the little miss on the Kong bed, and the couple started a fire and began kneading dough, ready to reward themselves with pancakes. Ing Bao on the Kong bed was rather bored, rolling around several times. She eventually lay down pretending to sleep. From her little pouch, she took out a handful of rice in its husk, secretly brought it into the cave and placed it next to the stone wall with the various seeds she had collected earlier. These were all grains she had secretly taken a few days ago from their storage of home. Upon inspection by Ing Bao, there were a few soybeans, a handful of wheat grains, a handful of millet, and the rice she had just brought in. It was a pity that she was too young and had insufficient energy. She couldn't stay in this space for long, otherwise, she would certainly have planted them all by now. While she still had the energy, Ing Bao looked intently around the cave. The cave ceiling, the surrounding walls, and the ground, all were made of hard rock, and she felt as if she were in a closed-off space made from rock. There was no apparent passage to enter or leave, yet she was clearly standing here, which was indeed magical. Ing Bao also found that some crystal-clear white plants were growing in the cracks of the rock. They looked a bit like Ganoderma lucidum. The crystal white leaves were only the size of soybeans, plump and thick. Clustered together, they looked like palm-sized hydrangeas. If you pinched the leaves, they burst into a sticky juice, akin to cactus juice. The juice had a faint fragrance that was invigorating, and it would dry quickly when applied to the skin. The skin it was applied to became as smooth as if it had been coated with snow cream, and the lingering fragrance persisted. It seemed harmless, but she couldn't confirm if it was edible. However, according to the logic of the story scripts, some treasures of heaven and earth were indeed grown in mysterious caves or secret realms. Hence, this crystal white plant could be a kind of treasure from heaven and earth. Ing Bao, lost in her thoughts, decided to take some out when she had the chance to feed it to the animals for observation, and see what their reactions would be. Unfortunately, there had not been a suitable opportunity recently, and she had not encountered any animals she could feed. Of course, she couldn't use her own hens for testing. What if they died, or stopped laying eggs because of it? That would certainly break her and her parents' hearts. Ing Bao lingered in the cave a bit longer, but soon she was unable to keep her eyes open, and unknowingly fell asleep. In her dream, she seemed to be walking through a mist. Suddenly a golden light flashed in front of her, bringing up a giant book as large as a table, a few majestic characters on the book cover, Qian Palace Suite Charming. Oh, this. Perhaps it was because she had not been reading script stories for a while, so even her dreams contained a book with such a familiar title. She turned to the first page, and Ing Bao looked closely. Several familiar terms jumped out from the paper. Chuanha Town, Xichen Village, Qinchuan County, Chen Tian Tian. Ing Bao was taken aback. The place she was in now, wasn't it Chuanha Town in Qinchuan County? Across the river, wasn't that Xichen Village? And Chen Tian Tian, this name sounded so familiar, but she just couldn't remember where she had heard it before. As he was deep in thought, a sudden gust of wind blew, turning the book in his hands into paper butterflies scattering in all directions, impossible to catch. It's a pity, he had almost finished the second chapter, and now he didn't know what would happen next. The two chapters were actually quite simple, mainly depicting Chen Tiantian's beautiful and charming appearance and cleverness. It also mentioned that she was a well-known beauty in Qinchuan County and the little lucky star who was doted on by her entire family. One day, a group of poor relatives from the countryside suddenly arrived at the beauty's home. It was said that Chuanha had experienced a great flood, destroying many houses and estates. These relatives escaped from their village and sought refuge with Chen Tiantian's mother, Mrs. Han. Ing Bao frowned. Xichen Village, a flood, and going to the county seat to seek refuge with relatives surnamed Han. This was what happened when she was 9. Mentioning it, the town where she lived, Chuanha Town, was right next to the Chuan River, and every few years there would be a flood. However, because the Qin village was located at a higher elevation, each time a flood occurred only the crops and farmlands were flooded, the village homes were not affected. But at the age of 6 and 9, Chuan River experienced 2 serious floods. The year when she was 6, she remembered that heavy rain started in early summer, followed by the rising water level of the Chuan River, flooding both villages and the surrounding villages. People took their cattle and sheep and fled to the higher terrains of Hebei Mountain or Xiaonan Mountain. Only after over 10 days, the water level gradually receded. The water in the village receded, but the ripening crops were lost. The farmland was filled with silt from the flood, and it was not possible to replant for a while, so many villagers took their families and fled. The summer of the year she was 9, there was also a lot of heavy rain. Jhelum flood came rushing, not only breaking the stone bridge between the two villages, but the houses in the village were also almost completely washed away. Many villagers died in that unprecedented flood. Ingbao remembered that she went with the Chen Chomping's family to the county town for refuge, and stayed in the house of Aunt Han, the younger sister of her birth mother, Han. The situation of Aunt Han's family was good. Her husband's surname was also Chen, and he was said to be a trusted advisor of the county magistrate, and was quite respected in the county town. Even the clerks in the government office addressed him cordially. Aunt Han had 2 sons and 3 daughters. Usually she called her daughters Big Yaya, Second Yaya, and Third Yaya, but which one of them was Chen Tian, she did not know. Before she could think more about it, her consciousness began to blur. When she woke up the next day, her head was still filled with the dream she had last night, and she felt listless. Sigh, it would have been nice if she could continue the story. The feeling of being left hanging was really annoying. Bao Bao, time to eat. Chun Yang cooked sticky sweet white rice porridge and also made a steamed egg custard, mixed together to feed her daughter. Ingbao ate it spoon by spoon, soon finishing a small bowl. She had to grow up fast, so she could start running and jumping without needing her mother's constant care. Bao Bao is really obedient today, she ate a whole bowl. Chun Yang put down the bowl and smilingly rubbed her daughter's stomach. Let mother see, is your little belly full? Ingbao was ticklish, and she giggled away to dodge her mother's hand. The mother and daughter were having fun when Grandma Jiang walked in with a basket. Mother is here. Chun Yang quickly got up to greet her. After the division of the family, even though they lived in the same village with grandmother Jiang Lu, she seldom visited. But today was unusual as she came early in the morning. However, Chun Yang knew clearly that her pregnancy must have been told to her mother-in-law by her husband. Grandmother placed the basket on the table, scanned her daughter-in-law up and down, her gaze lingering on her daughter-in-law's abdomen. San Lang told me you were pregnant, so I came to see. I've brought some chicken eggs from home. Your sister-in-law asked me to bring them to you. Grandmother and her husband lived with their eldest son and all household affairs were managed by her eldest daughter-in-law. Luckily, the eldest daughter-in-law was virtuous and sensible, and she had picked some egg early in the morning and asked her to give it to her third son's wife. Chapter 5, Chapter 5, Chapter 5, Sending the Child. Chapter 5, Chapter 5, Sending the Child. Chun Yang supported the old lady to sit on the edge of the Kong and anxiously said, "We still have eggs at Rome, you should keep these and nourish your body. Everyone has it hard these days, let alone she hadn't given birth yet, it didn't feel right to accept her sister-in-law's eggs." Jiang Lu glanced at her and took off her shoes to climb onto the Kong and sit cross-legged. "What belongs to your household is yours, but the eggs are a token of affection from your sister-in-law, so you mustn't decline. Besides, you're pregnant for the first time, and it's twins at that. You need to eat nutritiously." Su family's daughter-in-law bowed her head in submission, quietly taking the advice. Jiang Lu, annoyed at her daughter-in-law's silence, started lecturing her, "Look at you, already pregnant but always huddled at home. It's good for your legs and feet to move around, it'll make for a smoother birth as well." Chun Yang wanted to deny her accusation of always staying at home but was afraid to interrupt and upset her mother-in-law, so she held back. Jiang Lu continued, "You don't have to do the heavy or exhausting work. You have your husband, and if he's not available, just call out for your sisters-in-law and they'll help you out." Touched by her mother-in-law's kindness, Chun Yang responded softly, "Yes, mother." Jiang Lu sat up straight, lecturing on and on. Seeing Chun Yang obedient and compliant, unlike her second daughter-in-law who loves to talk back, made her feel much better. The long-standing frustration was diluted by her daughter-in-law's pregnancy situation. The old lady touched little Ingbao's nose and said in a gentle tone, "And you, from now on, don't let your mother carry you. Be careful not to accidentally bump the baby inside her." Seeing her grandma talking about her, Ingbao grinned, "Grandma, Ingbao is good, won't carry, Granny carry." "Ah, what a sweetie, you can call me Grandma." Jiang Lu was thrilled to see the little one so sensible and able to understand human speech. She stroked the toddler's small head and affectionately said, "Grandma is too old to carry Ingbao." How about I let your sister carry you next time? MMM. Ing Bao nodded agreeably. Sister, carry. The houses of the first and second uncles had several boys, but only 2 girls. They were Danny from the eldest uncle's family and Ernie from the second uncle's house, aged 9 and 6 respectively. In her previous life, she used to follow the 2 cousins around and play until she was 5. They picked ragged clothes, collected firewood, and gathered amaranth, even enjoying playing house with mud. It was wonderful fun. But those happy memories abruptly ended with the arrival of the Chens. That's a deal. Grandma will have your sister carry you. Jiang Lu touched Ing Bao's forehead and said to her daughter-in-law, pack a few clothes for Ing Bao and take her to the front yard. Let your eldest sister-in-law take care of her for a while, and you need to take care of your pregnancy. Ah. Upon hearing this, Chun Yang quickly declined, it's not good to bother my sister-in-law. Ing Bao is a good kid, I can take care of her myself, it's no trouble. She couldn't bear to hand over Ing Bao to someone else, even her sister-in-law. As you wish. Jiang Lu glanced at her third daughter-in-law, feeling that she had given all the necessary instructions. She got off the Kong, put on her shoes, beat the dust off her clothes, and walked out, saying as she went, if one day you find you can't cope, just call for Danny in the front to come and help out. I need to go back. Be careful not to climb or go to high or low places to avoid straining yourself. I understand, mother. After sending her mother-in-law off, Chun Yang breathed a sigh of relief. Thinking of her mother-in-law's advice to move around more for an easier childbirth, she reached out to hold her daughter. Ing Bao, do you want to go outside with Mom to see the peach blossoms? Ing Bao remembered Grandma's instructions and was reluctant to be carried by her mother. She shook her head, pushing away her mother's hand. Ing Bao twisted her hips to slide down from the Kong, then reached out her small hand for her mother to hold. A peach tree outside the courtyard bloomed luxuriously, its pink petals scattered all over the ground. After walking around a few laps, mother and daughter sat to rest under the peach tree. Ing Bao propped herself up against the large stone under the tree, crouching down to pick up the peach blossoms. Chun Yang sat next to her, embroidering a pair of tiger head shoes. All of a sudden, Wang Er's wife from next door came over with her embroidery basket. She plopped down on a small stool under the tree, gazing at Chun Yang's tiger head shoes for a bit before breaking the silence. Oh, are you making shoes for Ing Bao? Yes. Chun Yang did not particularly want to engage with Wang Er's wife, who had often gossiped about her outside. Wang Er's wife ignored Chun Yang's coldness, and said mysteriously, Chun Yang, let me tell you something fascinating. Chun Yang glanced at her, what is it? Wang Er's wife moved her stool closer to Chun Yang, playing coy, you know, Chen Tsuanjing's daughter-in-law gave birth before the new year, with Aunt Wu from West Village acting as the midwife. Can you guess what happened? What happened? Wang Er's wife chuckled, glanced in Ing Bao's direction, and lowered her voice. Aunt Wu said that Chen Chomping's wife from West Village had another girl. Su Chun Yang didn't raise her eyes, and disdainfully said, what's so surprising about having a daughter? Huh. It's not surprising, but since Chen Erlang's family had their child, I've never seen her carry a child outside. Chun Yang paused her work, looked up and said, so, what if she doesn't go out? Wang Ernyang covered her mouth and chuckled softly, some people say that their child has been given away. Chun Yang's heart skipped a beat, her brow furrowed. Oh dear, who could they possibly give the child to? Wang Ernyang threw a glance at Ing Bao, who has spare money to raise someone else's daughter. Chun Yang sternly asked, what do you mean, Ernyang? Wang Ernyang smirked, I was just talking carelessly, don't overthink it. Ing Bao was picked up by your third son. What does she have to do with Chen Chomping's family? Anyway, Chen Erlang is an educated man, his family isn't lacking in food or drink, how could they abandon a child, right? She winked as she continued, but, Chen Chomping's mother did say that the little girl was born weak and died the next day. Dead? Chun Yang felt a sense of relief. Oh dear, people can say whatever they want, who knows if it's true or not. As Wang Ernyang sorted out her thread, she said, but the midwife, Wu Xinyang, said that the baby had a loud cry on the day of delivery, she didn't seem weak. If she wasn't weak, how come the perfectly good baby gone all of a sudden? Oh goodness, I don't even dare to think about it. Who would be heartless enough to abandon their own flesh and blood considering it's not as if we are starving? Chun Yang remained silent. Little Yingbao, who had been picking peach blossoms, looked at Wang Enyang. Her heart was in turmoil. In her previous life, Chen Chongping's family insisted the child was born weak and died before it was abandoned in the back mountain. There was no intention of intentional abandonment. Hence, the government ruled that she should be returned to her original family, and Chen Chongping had to pay Jiang family 2 taels of silver for the upbringing fees. She remembered when she was forcibly carried away, both her parents had red eyes from crying. It was due to that case that the Jiang family completely fell out with Chen Chongping's family. Yingbao rubbed her nose and tugged down her sleeve. This birthmark was the tangible evidence for Chen Chongping and the midwife to claim her identity. Before she turned 3, she must find a way to get rid of it. In the evening, Su Chunyang told her husband about her conversation with Wang Enyang, worriedly saying, "What do you think, could our Yingbao really be Chen Chongping's child?" Jiang Sanlang fell silent. After a long while, he finally said, "Even if she is his child, he has abandoned her already. Can he still want to reclaim her?" But, Chunyang pulled her daughter close to her, feeling down. "I feel uneasy." Jiang Sanlang held his wife's hand, comforting her, "Don't worry. When I found Yingbao, there was no one around to see. Who could prove the child is from Chen Chongping's family? Moreover, they abandoned the child at the graveyard, clearly not intending for her to survive, so how could they come looking for her after all this time?" Su Chunyang was slightly relieved. She closed her eyes, but suddenly opened them again. "Sanlang, you didn't tell anyone where you found Yingbao, did you?" Jiang Sanlang nodded. "I'm not foolish. Since we decided to raise Yingbao, why would I tell the truth?" "That's good." Su Chunyang rests her head on her husband's chest, murmuring, If someone does come to claim Yingbao in the future, you must say we found her at Xiaonan Mountain. North and south, separated by over 10 miles. All right." The husband and wife remained silent for a while. Chunyang suddenly remembered something, anxiously asking, "Sanlang, Yingbao has a birthmark on her wrist, do you think that family will claim her with the birthmark as evidence?" Jiang Sanlang frowned, and after a while, he replied, "Then we just make sure no one else sees her birthmark." "But," Chunyang said, worried, "we'll be fine when it's cold, but I'm afraid we won't be able to hide it in the summer. There's no way a child would wear long sleeves in the summer. Even if we made her wear them, she wouldn't keep them on. She would take them off herself. Don't think about it anymore, sleep. There will be a way where the road ends." Jiang Sanlang comforted his wife. After all, Chen Chongping is an educated man, his reputation is still important. We didn't steal or rob Yingbao. If he wants her back, he must follow the proper procedures. Chunyang didn't speak again, staying quiet. Chapter 6, Chapter 6, Chapter 6, Planting Trees. Chapter 6, Planting Trees. Yingbao closed her eyes and pretended to sleep, quietly listening to her parents' whispers. In the end, her parents underestimated the shamelessness of Chen Chongping and his wife. They didn't need any dignity, as long as they could achieve their goals. She descended into the depths of her consciousness, and Yingbao carefully observed the red birthmark on her wrist. How to remove it without leaving a scar? As long as the birthmark on her wrist disappeared, no one could prove that she was a child of the Chen family. Yingbao squatted by the pool, soaking and scrubbing her arm repeatedly in the icy cold water. She scraped some of the 5-dingji juice from the stone wall and applied it onto her wrist, unwilling to give up. She wanted to try and see if the birthmark could be scrubbed off. In the story, it mentioned that the spiritual spring could wash away impurities and eliminate bodily bruises. She didn't know if this water was spiritual spring, and whether 5-dingji was a treasure, but how would she know if she didn't try? 4 months passed in a blink of an eye. Yingbao was 1 year and 3 months old. After tireless efforts, she was not only able to run and jump, but her language skills had greatly improved. Now in the height of summer, she was wearing a sweatshirt and shorts sewn by her mother. Her wrists wrapped in cloth, she was in the corner of the yard, wielding a small shovel to dig a hole, ready to transplant saplings. The apple seeds in the soil of the cave dwelling had germinated, but unfortunately, the seedlings only grew to the height of chopsticks before they stopped growing. Without a choice, Yingbao decided to transplant them outdoors, planting them at the northwest corner of the yard. This was their vegetable plot at home. The soil was loose and fertile, suitable for young plants to grow. Ingbao, what are you planting? With a big belly, Su Chunyang walked over slowly. Her face was glowing and full, and she looked even more beautiful and tranquil than before. She was 7 months pregnant but looked as if she was already full term. It was quite difficult for her to move around. Ingbao planted the sapling, patted some earth over it, then beamed, answering, apple tree. Su family was curious, where did Ingbao get an apple tree? From a seed. Ingbao didn't hide it. The apple that Dad gave. There were seeds in it. Really? Su Chunyang was surprised. Apples were rare here. They were only sold in the county town, and in small quantities. They were exotic items brought over by merchant convoys and often bought up by the wealthy as soon as they appeared. Sister Jiang Yunyang's family, who ran a business in the county town, had easier access to foreign merchant convoys, so they could bring some home to their parents. When did Ingbao plant it? Chunyang was somewhat incredulous. She thought her little girl was just playing in the mud in and around the yard every day. Ingbao stood up. In the spring. Then she ran towards the kitchen to get water for irrigation. Of course, she wasn't lifting water from the well, but secretly taking it from the cave dwelling when she appeared to be in the kitchen. Bao Bao, you can't use well water to water the plants. You have to expose it to the sun first, suggested Su Chunyang, as a farmer, aware that well water could harm the seedlings. Ingbao blinked, hesitated for a while, then placed the water scoop on the ground. Her mother's words made sense. Perhaps the reason the seedlings in the cave did not grow was due to the water not being exposed to sunlight. Seeing how cute her little girl was, Chunyang couldn't help but touch her head, speaking softly, when Dad comes back, let's have him carry river water specifically for watering your trees. Chunyang didn't really have high hopes for Ingbao's apple tree sapling. After all, no one had seen such a thing before, and fruit seedlings needed to be pruned and grafted by people who understood them before they could bear fruit. Otherwise, even if they grew up, it would be in vain. Of course, she wouldn't say these things to disappoint her daughter. All children have their beautiful dreams, right? At noon in the summer, the heat was extraordinary. The sun baked the earth, and it was scorching hot, as if it could peel off layers of skin. In the soybean field, Jiang Sanlang was wearing a straw hat, sweating profusely as he weeded with his hoe, finally finishing a plot of land. Looking up at the high sun and feeling his stomach already singing the song of emptiness, he wiped off his sweat, bent down to pick up the empty water jar, and rushed home with his hoe on his shoulder. On the way home, he ran into neighbor Uncle Wang and Aunt Wang, greeting them, "Uncle, are you also weeding?" "Aha." Uncle Wang, around 4 decades old, was a bit deaf. He was tall and thin, with a serious hunchback due to years of hard work. Aunt Wang, on the other hand, was robust and had a quick tongue. Seeing Jiang Sanlang, she asked with a smile, "Sanlang, when is your wife due?" Jiang Sanlang scratched his head, "It's still early." The midwife told him that his wife's due date was at the beginning of October, but early delivery wasn't out of the question. So, Jiang Sanlang didn't want to tell others about his family affairs, especially someone like Aunt Wang who loved to gossip. Seeing that Jiang Sanlang was avoiding the question, Aunt Wang pursed her lips but dropped the topic. She just smiled and said, "Sanlang, your little Ingbao has become quite famous recently." Jiang Sanlang knitted his brows. "Aunt, what are you talking about?" Aunt Wang leaned in, and said in a hushed tone, "Let me tell you. Recently, many people in the village are saying that your Ingbao is the reincarnation of a fairy child who came to Earth to send children to people." "Aunt, don't talk nonsense." The displeased Jiang Sanlang retorted, "What kind of fairy child, who's spreading such rumors? I should go to their house and have a word. Who talks about a child like this? My Ingbao can't bear this kind of reputation." If Ingbao were their own biological child, it wouldn't be a big deal, but she was picked up. And now that this rumor was out, who knew if her good-for-nothing biological parents would get any ideas? Aunt Wang snorted, "Why am I talking nonsense? It's what people on the outside are saying, I'm just informing you, all right? And moreover, whether you admit it or not, your wife Chunyang is genuinely pregnant with twins. She hasn't been pregnant for 10 years, and just by coincidence, now she is." Absurd. Jiang Sanlang scowled, didn't address Aunt Wang again, and walked off with big steps. "Humph." Aunt Wang rolled her eyes. "What does he think he is, a big shot? I kindly told him and he got a big huff. It was like feeding meat to a dog. He didn't appreciate it. Ugh. Wasn't his wife barren before they found Ing Bao? Now, without Ing Bao, wouldn't his wife still be childless? In previous years, every day they watched him throw out medicine residue. The small pond behind his house is nearly full. Does he think we're blind? Aunt Wang muttered to herself. She caught a glimpse of her husband's glaring look and barked back, "What are you glaring at? Useless piece of junk. You only know how to bully your wife. Just now when Jiang Sanlang was being all high and mighty, why didn't you glare at him?" Uncle Wang shrank his gaze, mumbled a few words unclearly, then turned his head, carrying his hoe hurriedly to walk in front. As for Jiang Sanlang, he strode towards home. From a distance, he saw his little girl standing at the entrance of the courtyard looking out for him. His heart warmed up instantly. Dad's home. Seeing her dad coming home, Ing Bao quickly brought a stool for him to sit and then sprinted to the kitchen to scoop water for her dad to wash his face. Jiang Sanlang entered the kitchen and lifted his daughter off the small stool, lightly tapping her and scolding her with a stern expression. "How can you stand on a stool to scoop water? What if you fell into the barrel?" Ing Bao giggled. Ing Bao won't fall in. Chapter 7, Chapter 7, Chapter 7, Water Chestnut. Chapter 7, Water Chestnut. Jiang Sanlang hummed lightly, scooped up 2 ladles of water, then pulled the sweat-soaked towel off his shoulder to rinse in the basin. In a few swipes, he washed his face, and wiped his neck and arms. At last, he felt cool. Yet, the water in the basin had turned pitch black. After changing the water, he saw his wife coming over, hand on her waist. "Sanlang, there's vegetable soup and flatbreads under the basket. I've already eaten with Ing Bao." "You better eat now," she said. "All right." Jiang Sanlang nodded, retrieving a large bowl of shepherd's purse soup and 5 pieces of dark flatbread, plus a boiled goose egg from under the basket. "Where did this goose egg come from?" Jiang Sanlang asked, sitting at the small table and taking a large bite out of a flatbread. "Sister Danny brought them." Chun Yang fanned her husband with a palm leaf fan while also fanning Ing Bao. "She gave us 2. Ing Bao and I ate 1, the other is for you." Jiang Sanlang tasted the soup and took a bite of the flatbread, then exclaimed, "Leave the goose egg for you both tomorrow. They say pregnant women who eat goose eggs will have fair-skinned babies. Why should I, a man, eat such delicacies? It's a waste." Chun Yang laughed. "Nonsense, how is it a waste if you eat it? Ing Bao and I have boiled eggs every day. Besides, our nephew has been bringing us small shrimps and loaches, we don't lack just a single goose egg. You better eat now. It's such a hot day and you are farming under the scorching sun, if you don't eat some meat and protein, you'll suffer sunstroke." As she spoke, she cracked the goose egg on the table corner, peeled off the shells, and handed it to her husband. Jiang Sanlang had no choice but to accept and began peeling the shells piece by piece. While Chun Yang seated herself on the high stool, she fanned her husband and daughter. Seeing their 2 hens crowding around her little girl as if begging for food, she quietly said, "It's strange, our 2 hens have gotten fatter lately, and have been laying eggs more diligently, 2 a day, and all double-yolked." Ing Bao looked up at Mom, then squatted down to pet the chickens' heads and stroke their feathery backs. The 2 hens clucked, nuzzling their young mistress's toes affectionately. At his wife's words, Jiang Sanlang halted and scrunched his brows. "It must be because they've been fed earthworms. Danielle has been bringing Ing Bao to collect earthworms for the chickens these days. The chickens are thriving, so of course they lay eggs more frequently." "Yeah, that's right." Chun Yang watched her daughter with a beaming smile, her joy growing the more she looked. Ing Bao was getting more and more beautiful, her entire being was like a delicately carved masterpiece, her refined brows and eyes resembling that of a doll in a New Year picture. Even though she was outdoors all day being exposed to the wind and sun, she hadn't darkened a bit. As for the other kids in the village, they were as black as mud loaches as soon as the summer harvest was over. It was unbearable to see. "Bao Bao, come here, open your mouth." Jiang Sanlang held a piece of egg yolk with chopsticks and stuffed it into his daughter's mouth. He handed another piece to his wife, and then finally started to eat the rest of the goose egg. After finishing the meal, the family of the 3 lay down on the mat for a midday nap. Ing Bao couldn't fall asleep, so when her parents were sound asleep, she snuck out of the house quietly. The two hens followed her closely. The three little ones arrived at a little dry ditch. This was the earthworm haven that Ing Bao and sister Danny frequented. The fertile soil in the ditch was excellent for growing seedlings. Ing Bao squatted down to dig the soil, filling the small bamboo basket with earth rich with fallen leaves, then carried it back and forth to her vegetable patch, scattering it around the seedlings. After just a few trips, she was panting heavily and had to sit down to rest. Suddenly remembering something, she smacked her forehead. She had an invisible storage space of her own, didn't she? Surely, it could be used to transport some soil. Becoming smaller made her brain rust. She looked around to find nobody. Everyone was indoors at midday avoiding the heat. Therefore, no matter what she did, no one would see. Ing Bao snapped to attention, picking up the shovel to dig into the soil. Dig, store, dig, store. Soon, she had stored a large patch of fertile soil from the ditch. The two hens, not getting any worms to eat, clucked anxiously, tilting their heads in puzzlement at their mistress. Ing Bao patted them regretfully, promising, "Wait a while, when Sister Danny comes, you'll have worms to eat." She needed to gather more soil while nobody was around to use it for growing seedlings later. "Bao Bao, what are you doing?" Not finding his daughter after waking up, Jiang Sanlang rushed out, and there he saw his little girl, face, hands, and body all covered with deep black soil, squatting in the ditch doing God knows what. Ing Bao jumped up and ran over hastily, followed closely by the two hens. They picked up speed, wings flapping in the process. "Daddy, Bao Bao is digging earthworms for the chickens." Ing Bao threw her companions under the bus without a hint of embarrassment. "Two hens, she's a liar." She lied. She ate them all herself, not even leaving the crumbs. Jiang Sanlang led his daughter home, dusted the soil off her body, washed her hands and face, put her by Chunyang's side, pinched the little tufts on her head, and threatened, "Go to sleep. If you dare run around alone again, prepare for a spanking." Ing Bao giggled, nestled next to her mother, and made a face at her father. Jiang Sanlang stood up and said to his wife, "The sun is not very intense outside, I'm going to hoe the rest of the field. Be careful at home with your heavy body and don't go out for a stroll too much. Also, keep an eye on Ing Bao and don't let her run around." I got it." Chunyang leaned on the cool mat, stroked her daughter's little head and gently said, "Lately, Bao Bao has definitely become wild. The moment I'm not looking, she disappears, and I can't catch up with her. Later you should call for Danny at the front and ask her to come over and play with Ing Bao more frequently." "Okay." Jiang Sanlang went to the kitchen to fill a pot with cold boiled water, put on his straw hat, shouldered the hoe, and went out. Not much later, Danny ran over, trailed by her youngest brother, Yuan Bao. "Aunt Chun, we're here to play with Ing Bao," Danny said. Chunyang was pacing around the house, and seeing her niece and nephew, she waved with a smile, "Danny is here, come inside quickly. Aunt Chun will make you some sugar water to drink." Doesn't Yuan Bao have lessons today?" Yuan Bao, 6 years old, had just started his private schooling this spring. Every day he went to school as if going to the gallows, and he came back like a monkey down a mountain. No lessons." Yuan Bao sniffed and hung his head low. He didn't understand why all the adults liked to ask that question when they saw him. Couldn't they say something that made him happy? Ing Bao ran over, dab dab dab, and grabbed her little cousin's hand. "Brother Yuan Bao, can you read to Ing Bao?" Yuan Bao touched the back of his head, his face struggling. I only know the first few sections of the 3-character classic." Sigh, he shouldn't have come with his big sister. Then brother Yuan Bao read the 3-character classic, all right. Although Ing Bao could read, she couldn't let her parents find out. She had to interact with and learn from Yuan Bao first before she dared to gradually reveal this skill. Yuan Bao couldn't bear his little cousin's expectant gaze, sighed helplessly, cleared his throat and began to recite, "At birth, people are intrinsically good, their inclinations are similar, but their habits make them different." After he recited, of the 3 forces, heaven, earth and human, Yuan Bao started to fumble and scratch his head anxiously. Ing Bao clapped her little hands in praise, saying, "Brother Yuan Bao is really amazing." Yuan Bao's face flushed, but his little chest puffed out instantly. Chun Yang called out, "Come and drink some sugared water." Yuan Bao, don't mind your sister. Hurry over and moisten your throat with some water. Okay. Yuan Bao exhaled in relief, dodged his younger cousin and ran over. Ing Bao snickered, then also ran to drink water. After finishing their brown sugar water, the three children stayed in the house for a while. Finding it uninteresting, they ran out of the yard and started catching small bugs among the many trees in front of the house. Yuan Bao was the most familiar with this game. He plucked a handful of locust tree leaves, stripped off the leaves, leaving only the slender leaf stem. He bent down and searched for a few bug holes, inserting a thin leaf stem into each one. He then patted the ground with his hand, shouting, "Bug, bug, come out quickly." Then he gently pulled out the leaf stem, and a small greenish-white bug would be dangling from it. Yuan Bao laughed heartily, rubbed the back of his nose with his hand, and held up the dangling bug for Ing Bao to see. Ing Bao backed away a few steps. She wasn't interested in these childish games. She turned to Danny and said, "Sister Danny, can we go and dig up some water chestnuts?" In their small mountain village there were rice paddies, and in the rice paddies they could find lots of tiny water chestnuts that were sweet to eat. Danny was also tempted and agreed immediately. So, Ing Bao went home to tell her mother, then ran with Danny and Yuan Bao to the nearby rice paddies. In the paddy, the rice seedlings had just taken root, and the small water chestnuts had quietly sprouted. Danny and Yuan Bao took off their shoes and waded into the paddy. They bent down, groped around, and before long they had found a bag of small round, black water chestnuts. These water chestnuts were only the size of a fingernail, and when eaten were sweet and crisp. Yuan Bao immediately popped a few into his mouth. Chapter 8, Chapter 8, Chapter 8, Shepherd's Purse. Chapter 8, Chapter 8, Shepherd's Purse. What on earth are you doing? A roar of anger echoed from a distance. The owner of the rice field was angrily rushing towards them. Run! Danny quickly picked up her shoes and grabbed Ing Bao's hand to make a quick dash. Yuan Bao followed suit. Within seconds all three children had run far away. "If I see you guys again, I'll break your dog legs. You little troublemakers." The field owner didn't really chase them, he just needed to shoo these naughty kids away. There's no day when those mischievous kids don't pull a stunt or two. Can he possibly scold them every single time? Besides, all these kids are part of the same village, every household has a few rascals of their own. Together with her cousins, Ing Bao ran all the way home and even scored a small handful of water chestnuts. She was delighted, secretly stashing away a few as seeds in her secret space, and gave the rest to her mother. Reluctantly accepting, the mother scolded, "Why did you go to the rice field? What if you trod on and damaged someone's rice seedlings?" Ing Bao confidently said, "I didn't break anything." Sighing, her mother took the water chestnuts to wash them. She culled the rotten and shriveled ones, leaving only about a dozen fresh ones to eat. By now, Danny and Yuan Bao had already gone home with their spoils. Ing Bao divided the dozen of small water chestnuts into 3 parts, one for her father, one for her mother, and one for herself. Her mother couldn't possibly accept her daughter's small treat and made an excuse that she didn't like it, asking her daughter to keep it for herself. Ing Bao didn't insist, she ate one and then took the rest into her room, placing them on her Kong bed stove. Kicking off her shoes, she climbed onto the bed and closed her eyes, her consciousness entering into her secret space. There she saw a pile of dirt next to the pool, crawling with earthworms, all heading toward the pool. It was quite a frightful sight. What's going on? What are these earthworms in the dirt pile doing going towards the pool? If they pollute the water it will be a disaster. Ing Bao quickly picked up a couple of sticks to catch the earthworms, ensnaring all of them into a mostly broken pottery jar. She had found this jar outside, despite being damaged, it was still usable, so she had brought it into her secret space. She had originally planned to use it to scoop water, now it came in great use to hold the earthworms. Having gathered up all the earthworms, Ing Bao packed a bit more dirt into the jar to prevent them from escaping. After some thought, she pulled out an earthworm, scratched off a bit of the 5-cauldron fungus from the stone wall, crushed it and smeared it onto the earthworm. For a long time, the earthworm showed no reaction, nor did it struggle. It seems the fungus is not poisonous, but she's not sure if it's edible for humans. Maybe she'll bring some out to test on the hen next day. A while ago, she only gave the hen some of the pool water to drink, but hadn't fed them the 5-cauldron fungus. Instead she gave them some herbs that grew in her secret space. The herb seeds she had taken from outside and sprinkled some onto the dark soil in her space. Surprisingly, in a few days, a large patch of herbs had sprouted, green and fresh, each plant larger than her own head. The fast-growing herbs almost filled up the dark soil next to the pool. So she had to dig some out quietly to feed the chickens. From the laying frequency of the hen recently, it seems that crops produced from the dark soil are quite good. Therefore, she enjoyed sneaking out alone, to come back with half a basket of herbs to give to her mother. Her mother initially found it strange, wondering how her daughter could always find such fresh and plump wild herbs. After all, it's summer now, most herbs are flowering, their stems and leaves are too old and tough to eat. Yet her daughter managed to bring back a half basket of tender herbs each time, which was indeed impressive. Luckily, her mother didn't think too much about it, unaware of the existence of such secret space cheat. She just thought her daughter was smarter and luckier than the other children. Inspired by the herbs, Ingbao set her sights on the bare rock space next to the pool. She planned to cover it with dirt and plant various vegetables. Although perennial fruit trees couldn't grow much, these annual or biannual leafy vegetables could grow normally, and quite fast at that. After the vegetables grow, what the humans don't eat can be given to chickens, sheep, and pigs. She plans to have the hen incubate some chicks next spring, and feed them with the produce from her secret space. This way, when her little brother grows up, there will be plenty of eggs to eat, and if there are extras, they can be sold for money or bartered in the market. That's why she has been collecting a variety of things lately. She did not reject any seeds like shepherd's purse, shepherd's cress, dandelion seeds, mustard seeds, and so on. She collected a little bit of all of them and placed them on a broken pottery shard that she had picked up earlier. Unfortunately, the variety of vegetables in the small mountain village was pitifully scarce. Apart from amaranth, greens, winter melon, and turnips, there were no other vegetables in the villagers' fields. This was unlike Prefecture City, where the rich families' dinner tables had an extraordinary variety of vegetables and some aristocratic families even had species from foreign lands in their farms. These foreign crops were rare and precious, utterly unreachable for ordinary people. All Ingbao could do was to yearn for them in her heart. After squatting down and digging up a few shepherd's purse plants, enough for tomorrow's lunch, Ingbao stopped. She then scattered the recently harvested little water chestnuts on a pile of black soil and watered it heavily. Only then did she feel a little tired. Ingbao quickly left the cave dwelling and plunged into sleep. When she woke up, her father had already returned home, and her mother had just finished making dinner, ready to call her. "Bao Bao, come and eat." Ingbao rolled over, sat up, rubbed her eyes, and slid off the kangs, or platform beds. She put on her shoes by herself, reached out for her mother's hand, and walked out of the room with her. By now, the sun was setting in the west. There was a mild breeze outside, and it was much cooler than inside the house. The table was set up in the center of the courtyard and had a big pot of amaranth corn porridge, a stack of black bread and pickled turnip shreds. Jiang Sanlang, after washing his face and hands, hung his sweat towel on the drying line and sat down at the table. The family of 3 gathered around and started eating. "Sanlang, are you going to weed the field tomorrow?" Spring Lady asked. Jiang Sanlang shook his head. "Our bean field is already weeded. The eldest brother has 2 paddies left, but he said he doesn't need my help." The 3 brothers of the Jiang family had divided their fields but not their households. Each was farming his own land separately, but since their parents were still around, the elder's field and allocated fields were under the eldest brother's name. So, whenever things got busy around the farms, the brothers would help out. Jiang Sanlang picked up a clay bowl bigger than his head and drank his veggie porridge, scooping huge mouthfuls, then slowly chewing on a few strands of pickles. "Tomorrow, I'm going to North Mountain. I guess it's time to harvest the Rami." Rami could be harvested thrice a year, and the end of July was just the right time for the second harvest. It shouldn't be postponed. "You planted lots of Rami in North Mountain. Can you handle it by yourself? Why not ask your 2 elder brothers for help?" Spring Lady worried that her husband was working too hard, and she couldn't provide any help, which made her uneasy. Jiang Sanlang shook his head. "No need to ask them, I can handle it. It will be done in just a few days." Ingbao blinked at her father, then suddenly said, "Dad, I want to go too." North Mountain had many wild fruit trees. Even if those trees did not yield good fruit, she had her black soil. She could cultivate them first, then transfer them out for a try. Jiang Sanlang reached out to pinch her small nose and chuckled, "What are you going there for? Dad will be busy with his work and can't take care of you." Ing Bao wrinkled her nose and murmured, "Bao Bao wants to go. Bao Bao doesn't need daddy." "Oh. You've got guts." Her father fondly rubbed her small head. "Be good and listen. Dad will bring you wild apricots when I come back." After dinner, they washed the bowls and chopsticks. Jiang Sanlang then boiled some water for the family to wash up. By the time they finished their chores, it was already dark outside. Jiang Sanlang grabbed a papyrus fan and shooed away the mosquitoes in the mosquito net. After dropping the net door, the three of them climbed onto the kangs to rest. Ing Bao slept on the innermost side, cuddled against her mother. She feigned sleep with her eyes shut, but her ears were erect, listening to her parents whisper to each other. Helpless, she had slept too much in the afternoon, and was too excited to fall asleep now. "Has Bao Bao fallen asleep?" Dad Jiang asked. Ing Bao didn't make a sound, pretending to be asleep. She knew, whenever her father asked this question, it meant he wanted to talk about something with her mother that he didn't want her to hear. In the darkness, her mother reached out and touched her eyes. "She's asleep," said Spring Lady. "I guess she's tired today." She picked water chestnuts in the paddy fields with Danny at noon, and said she was saving them for you. After eating dinner, she was fussing over her 2 apple seedlings, watering and enriching the soil. To prevent chickens from pecking the seedlings, she even looked for a basket to cover them. Jiang Sanlang chuckled lightly, asking, "Where did she get the apple seedlings from?" "They're from the apple you brought back last time." Bao Bao kept the seeds. And guess what, she actually managed to germinate 2 seedlings. Spring Lady sighed, "You see, she's so young, but she's already adept in saving seeds for planting and has even succeeded in growing them." Jiang Sanlang was silent for a while before he said, "Spring Lady, don't mention these things to others in the future." Upon catching the seriousness in her husband's voice, Spring Lady hurriedly asked, "What's wrong? Did someone say something?" "Yeah," Jiang Sanlang said, "I ran into Second Aunt Wang today. She said that people in the village were saying that Ing Bao is a God-given child. I worry that someone might harbor ill intentions. Could such a small child carry the weight of these titles? If the rumors got out of hand, given their humble status, they wouldn't be able to protect their daughter." Spring Lady fell silent too. Chapter 9, Chapter 9, Chapter 9, Rumors Start. Chapter 9, Chapter 9, Rumors Start. After a while, Jiang Sanlang finally spoke again. "Chunyang, how did Ing Bao know that there's a boy in your belly?" Chunyang paused before saying, "I've heard from the elders that children are rumored to be a bit supernatural. As they grow up, those supernatural elements gradually fade away. It's not unusual. It is also said that younger children can sense if the baby in the mother's belly is a boy or a girl. I guess I'm carrying a boy." Jiang Sanlang chuckled, "True that. Last time, your mother asked you and Bao, is it a brother or a sister you have in your belly? Heh, I hope it's a boy and a girl. Ing Bao will have a brother to protect her and a sister to keep her company." The two of them made small talk for a while and then drifted off to sleep. Ing Bao was wide awake, blinking in the dark. The rumors started to circulate nonetheless. That family will probably hear about it very soon. Ing Bao lowered her consciousness into the cave dwelling and looked at her wrist. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but the color of her birthmark seemed to have faded a bit, yet it was still clearly discernible. The size of a copper coin, shaped like a plum blossom, it was very distinct and unforgettable at first sight. Ing Bao was troubled. She had scrubbed it for several months, but the birthmark had not changed much, indicating that it could not be washed off with the 5 ding qi and pool water. In that case, she could only resort to the other 2 methods, either cutting it off or burning it off. With her brother's birth imminent, she would soon become the focus of the entire village, so she couldn't afford to delay any longer. But both cutting and burning were so painful, she was afraid she might not be able to go through with it. But if she was afraid of this little pain, what awaited her would only be even more agonizing pain. Pain that hurt her to the bone. Maybe she could wait until the weather was colder to proceed, that way, there would be less chance of infection. The next day, Ingbao got up early, got dressed, washed up, and, as usual, bandaged up her wrists with cloth. She first went to water the tree sapling and covered it with the wicker cover. Then went to the chicken nest to collect a couple of eggs and put them in the egg storage basket. After that, she took a small basket with a small shovel in it, took 2 mother hens, and went out for a walk. She didn't go far, just idled around near the house. Oh, it's Ingbao. Aunt Wang was about to go to the river to wash, and when she saw the kid wearing shorts and a short top, she smiled and asked, "Where are you off to so early?" Ingbao blinked, looked up and responded in her baby voice, "Aunt Wang, I'm about to dig some earthworms to feed the chickens." "Oh, you are such a good kid." Aunt Wang scanned Ingbao, her gaze stopped at the baby girl's wrist. Why are both of your wrists wrapped in cloth? Did you get hurt?" "No," Ingbao, keeping a straight face, said, "it just looks nice." To appease Ingbao and stop her from taking off the wristbands, Chun Yang had trimmed the cloth strips and embroidered plum blossom patterns on them. In fact, Chun Yang didn't know this, but even if she hadn't made the effort to decorate the strips, Ingbao would still keep them on, not giving anyone a chance to discover a birthmark. In her previous life at this point, Ingbao was a naive, ordinary kid who didn't understand the purpose of the wristband her mother put on her, nor did she strictly abide by her mother's instructions. As a result, that family found her. Aunt Wang laughed slightly and lowered her voice to ask, "Ingbao, tell Auntie, do your parents hit you? Do they ever not feed you?" Rolling her eyes inwardly, Ingbao replied in her sweet innocent voice, "Daddy and Mommy love Ingbao the most. They never hit me. They always save the tastiest food for me. Daddy and Mommy say that Ingbao is their treasure. If anyone dares to bully her, they'd beat them up." Aunt Wang's face darkened and her lips twitched. "Oh, this little chatterbox, she sure can talk a lot." She turned and left. Ingbao stuck her tongue out at Aunt Wang's retreating figure, then took the 2 mother hens to the small dry canal. Seeing no one around, she took out the jar of earthworms from the cave and dumped it out. The earthworm smeared with 5 ding chi was also taken out, cut into pieces with the shovel, and fed to the hens. The 2 hens clucked and pounced on the food, quickly finishing the pieces of earthworm. Then they tilted their heads from side to side and kept an eye on their owner, acting as if they wanted more. The earthworms that were dumped out of the jar crawled around, but they were completely ignored by the 2 hens. Even if the little owner cut a few more worms into pieces and put them in front of the hens merely retreated a few steps and did not pay it any attention. Ingbao thoughtfully scooped up a handful of 5 ding chi from the cave wall and fed it to the hens. The hens became excited, quickly stretched their necks to peck and eat, and they even pecked and bit Ingbao's fingertips, their force so light that it made her giggle. Afterward, Ingbao spent the entire day observing the 2 hens. Seeing that they were acting as usual, she felt relieved. A few days later, Jiang Sanlang finished harvesting the hemp from the North Mountain, and carrying it to the pond behind the house, he began soaking it in bundles. These hemp plants needed to soak for several days before they could be peeled, so Jiang Sanlang could finally take a few days off. "Ingbao, do you want to go to North Mountain?" Jiang Sanlang remembered that his daughter wanted to go to the North Mountain, and today he planned to fulfill her little wish. Yes. Ingbao raised her little hand, happily asking her daddy to hold her. Jiang Sanlang laughed heartily, and brought over a carrying basket. "Ingbao can sit in the basket, it will be easier for daddy to carry." "Okay. Of course." Ingbao had no objections, she happily stepped into the carrying basket. North Mountain is about 3 to 4 miles away from Dongchen village and has a thicker vegetation than Xiaonan Mountain. Jiang Sanlang pointed to a piece of the forest to his daughter. "This piece of land belongs to us. Next to us is your 2 uncles. Your grandpa's place is near Shichen village over there, it's a bit far from here." Last year, while he was picking cherries in his father's field, he heard a baby crying near a small mound of graves. So, he went over to check and found a small swaddling baby in the bushes. The swaddle was covered with ants, biting the baby's face. The baby was helplessly shaking its head and crying loudly. It was pitiful. Every time he thought of that day, Jiang Sanlang felt a heartache. Luckily, the baby had an amazing recovery. In a few days, the swelling on her face went down, with no scars left. "Let's go, Daddy will take you to see our mulberry trees." Jiang Sanlang, with his daughter on his back, walked towards a piece of land with mulberry trees. The villagers of Chuanha town weren't very good at rearing silkworms, but every household grew some mulberry trees. This was the rigid requirement of the imperial court, which not only mandated each family to grow a certain quantity of mulberry and elm trees but also trees that could easily be turned into wood, otherwise, they would be subjected to double taxes and levies. Jiang Sanlang stood on his toes and pulled a bunch of mulberry branches for his daughter, each with several purple mulberries on them. Ying Bao squinted her eyes with a smile and chose the biggest and most purple mulberry to stuff into her father's mouth. "Daddy, eat." Jiang Sanlang enjoyed the fruit with a smile and found a few more trees, and pulled a big handful of branches with mulberries into the basket, telling his daughter, "Don't eat too much, we'll take them back for your mother to taste." Eating a few of these could help with diarrhea, but eating too much would cause it, so Jiang Sanlang didn't let his daughter overindulge. Okay. Let's take them home for mommy." Ying Bao confirmed verbally, but still picked a few that were fully ripe and secretly kept them in her cave for seeds. Now she had one more variety of fruit tree. The father and daughter wandered around the forest and found many wild fruit trees, like chestnut, wild peach, and wild pear. The fruit from these wild trees were not only small but also not pleasant to eat, so villagers weren't interested in them. Only children would occasionally visit them once or twice. Jiang Sanlang toured around with his daughter and only found a few fully ripe apricots, but when he broke them open, worms were already living inside. He shook his head and asked his daughter, "Can we go home now?" Ying Bao was reluctant to leave. She wanted to see if there were any Tremella fusiformis, a type of fungus commonly known as snow fungus, here which usually grow on mulberry trees. This was worth a fortune. If dried, it would sell for 20 taels of silver per pound in the big pharmacies of the prefecture city. Suddenly, 2 roe deer appeared from behind a cluster of trees, looking at them with big eyes. "Daddy, deer. Deer." Ying Bao excitedly tugs at Daddy's collar and points to the side, whispering a reminder. Jiang Sanlang also saw them, and was even more excited than his daughter. "Daddy sees them. Okay, let's hurry back home and ask your uncles to help with hunting." Saying this, he turned around and left. The deer were vigilant and had already fled into the trees and disappeared. Jiang Sanlang hurried home, handed his daughter to Chunyang, and then grabbed the bow, arrows, and ropes to leave. It had been a few years since the North Mountain had deer. He didn't expect a herd to appear this year. His wife was about to give birth at home, and he was worrying about not having enough money for the preparations, and here came a gift from heaven. Jiang Sanlang went to his elder brother's house to discuss, and the 3 of them carrying canteens and a few cakes, bows and arrows on their backs, quietly left the village. During deer hunting, they would have to scare the deer into an open area before they could start hunting. The deer were extremely alert. Before they could even fully draw their bows, the deer would already have darted into the trees and disappeared. It took a lot of time to prepare for this hunt, searching, driving, and surrounding. The effort spent on hunting deer would take at least a day or 2. Some hunters would spend half a month in the mountains just to come back with 1 or 2 big animals, like deer or bears. Chapter 10, Deer Hunting. Chapter 10, Deer Hunting. 3 days later, the Jiang brothers returned, each carrying a deer on their shoulders, causing a stir in the entire village. 3 deer in total, 1 dead and 2 injured, one of which was a fawn. "I say, Jiang 3, that's not very honorable of you. Going deer hunting without giving us a heads up," a young villager commented sarcastically. Jiang Sanlang chuckled, "It all happened so suddenly, besides, I didn't see you around." Knowing he was just fobbing him off, the youngster switched topics and asked, "Where did you go hunting?" "North Mountain, my elder brothers and I chased them dozens of miles and nearly lost our way back." Jiang Sanlang put a rope around the fawn's neck and tied it to the handle of the stone mill. "North Mountain, I was chopping hemp on North Mountain yesterday, why didn't I see this?" asked another villager. "By the time you see it, the deer would have already run off somewhere," the young man retorted snappishly, then turned back to Jiang Sanlang and asked, "You brought back 3 deer, the herd must have been pretty large, right?" Jiang Sanlang replied, "Not that big, just 3 or 4 deer, 3 adult deer and 1 fawn." In truth, there were more, but he wouldn't reveal the whole truth to outsiders. This time, when he and his elder brothers went chasing after the deer, they found that the herd had as many as a dozen deer. If they were to hunt one, they could have settled it and returned the same day. Because of the hot weather, the dead deer wouldn't keep for long, so they had to be brought back as soon as possible for processing. But how could they let go of such a good opportunity? So they followed closely, waiting for a chance to hunt more live deer to bring back. Sure enough, their efforts paid off, and they managed to hunt 3 deer. However, one of the deer suffered severe injuries and died on the way back. Fortunately, the deer carcass had been wrapped with herbal medicine, so it hadn't rotted much. Upon hearing that it was only a small deer herd, the young man's grudge dissipated, and he reluctantly said, "You are really lucky, actually managed to hunt 3. Jiang Sanlang chuckled and went to help his elder brother skin the deer. Ing Bao squatted in front of the stone mill, and seeing the fawn curled up under the stone mill, looking at her with a pair of frightened, wet eyes, she couldn't help but feel a stir in her heart. It seemed like the fawn had been shot in the buttocks, which had been treated with some herbal medicine, but blood was still seeping out. Many flies were buzzing around the wound, which didn't look very good. Ing Bao slowly moved closer, and quietly got some wudingzi, a type of medicinal herb, from her dwelling. She crumbled it and applied it to the fawn's wound. Just as she finished applying it, she heard Sister Danny calling, "Ing Bao, don't touch it, you'll get your hands dirty." Ing Bao turned her head and smiled, "Not dirty." Danny saw that her cousin's hands indeed weren't dirty, and took her outside the yard. "Let's go watch the deer being skinned." Ing Bao didn't want to go. She wanted to look after the injured elder deer. But she was too small to resist Sister Danny. She had no choice but to follow her, glancing back one step at a time. Outside in the tree grove, a crowd of villagers had gathered, all watching eagerly as the Jiang brothers skinned the deer. A few kids were darting about in the crowd, touching the antlers and poking the deer legs, frolicking and laughing. Yuan Bao was among them as well, acting like a little wolf protecting its food, glaring at this one and blocking that one, not letting anyone touch his family's deer. In the afternoon, the Jiang family cooked the deer meat, inviting Chief Chen Fu of Chen Village Clan, Village Chief Chen Sanyo, private school master along with several highly respected elders in the village to their house for dinner. After the deer banquet was over and the guests were sent off, Old Man Jiang finally called his 3 sons to have a talk. "Tomorrow is market day in Simon. Why don't the 3 of you take the injured deer, deer hide, and antlers to sell there? Simon is near the county town and it's a large market, you should get a good price." After taking a sip of the bamboo leaf drink handed to him by his wife, Old Man Jiang resumed, "The silver you get, you 3 split evenly. As for the fawn, let's leave it for Sanlang. De Lang, Lang, you 2 don't have any objections, right?" Jiang De immediately replied, "What are you talking about? How could we object? We're all family here, the fawn should indeed go to Sanlang." Jiang also nodded, "Exactly, father, you're too much of a stranger, what do you think we are?" Old Man Jiang nodded, "That's good." Turning to his 3rd son, he said, "When you go back, take the fawn with you. I noticed that Ing Bao seemed to like it very much. If the fawn can be raised well, it can later be sold for money to make clothes for her. Sanlang, Ing Bao is such a good girl, you have to take good care of her." This was effectively handing over the ownership of the fawn to Ing Bao. Jiang Sanlang laughed, "Father, don't worry, even without the deer, my girl will have new clothes. As long as you understand." Old Man Jiang snorted lightly, "Our boys and girls are all precious in this household. Ing Bao is also my own granddaughter. Whatever others have, she must have too." He was reminding his 3rd son not to neglect Ing Bao when his own biological children were born. Jiang Sanlang wasn't foolish, he naturally knew what his father intended to convey. But how could he be terrible to his own daughter? His father was underestimating him. "You can rest assured that Ing Bao is my eldest daughter. Her younger brothers and sisters will all respect and love her. When she grows up, I will find a good family for her to marry into," Jiang Sanlang said with a laugh. Old Master Jiang glared at his 3rd son, "You talk nonsense all the time. How old is she now? Go away." Jiang Sanlang scurried away, leading Xiaolu back home, and tied it to the leg of the table in the main room. Hearing the noise, Ing Bao hurriedly got off the bed and ran over to see. "Dad, why did you bring Xiaolu back?" Though the 3 brothers of the Jiang family had split up, they still lived in the same household. Whenever they worked together on a project, the profits were primarily managed by the eldest brother, since their parents still lived with him. Jiang Sanlang laughed and said, "Your grandfather gave Xiaolu to us. He said that my daughter should raise it, and the money we get from selling it later will be used to buy you fabric for beautiful clothes." "Really?" Hee hee. Ying Bao was happy. She joyfully stroked Xiaolu's head and murmured, "I promise to fatten you up, so my little brother can eat meat." Xiaolu. It backed away in horror, keeping its distance from this frightening human cub. That night, Ying Bao had a dream again. She stood in a thick fog, and that book appeared before her again. The pages of the book turned of their own accord, flipping directly to the 3rd chapter. Ying Bao didn't dare to hesitate and quickly leaned in to read. Before she could read much, the book turned into a paper butterfly and flew away. This time, Ying Bao was certain that the book was describing the Chen family of Shichen village, including Aunt Han's family in County Town. Except for the name Ying Bao, everything else matched up 1-to-1. The book said that there were 3 brothers in the Chen family, with Chen Chongping being the second. He was a scholar who had failed the imperial exam multiple times. His wife, from the Han family, had lost her parents early. She had no brothers and only one younger sister. She gave birth to their eldest daughter, Chen Wan, their second daughter, Chen Zhao, their third daughter, Chen Ying, and a 4-year-old son, Chen Su. The third daughter, Chen Ying, was the name that Chen Chongping had given to Ying Bao in her previous life. Ying Bao squinted her eyes. This book was fascinating indeed. It was written from the perspective of Aunt Han's second daughter, Chen Tian. In the book, Chen Chongping's 3 daughters were described as follows: eldest daughter Wan was timid and fearful, second daughter Zhao sweet-tongued but full of bitterness, third daughter Ying was gloomy and malicious, and all were considered undesirable females. The only son, Chen Su, was portrayed as a spoiled, little tyrant, selfish and disliked by many. And indeed, this was the truth. Chen Chongping's 3 daughters were often beaten or scolded by Madame Han. Girls who grow up in such a family atmosphere would naturally have some character flaws. Ying Bao clearly remembered how, when she was 5 years old and brought back to the Chen family, Madame Han had beaten her severely with a bamboo strip as soon as she entered the door. Her back, arms, and legs were all bruised. Madame Han probably regretted parting with the 2 taels of silver given to the Jiang family and was frustrated with previous issues. Upon seeing Ying Bao's crying and fussing, she wanted to establish her authority over her new daughter and vent her own anger. After all, the process of getting their daughter back was full of twists and turns and had even ended up in court. In that lawsuit, though it seemed that the Chen family had won, they ended up losing their reputations in the village. But Madame Han had her wish fulfilled. The next year, she gave birth to a big, fat son. Chen Chongping was jubilant and searched through numerous books to name his son, an auspicious name, Su, and pet name was Bao Bao. As for Ying Bao, who they used as a tool in all this, she started living a miserable life in the Chen family from that day onward. Chapter 11, Chapter 11, Chapter 11, Possibly Cannon Fodder. Chapter 11, Chapter 11, Possibly Cannon Fodder. Waking up from the dream. Ying Bao stared at the top of the tent, dumbfounded for quite a while. She didn't expect she'd be cast in a book. Based on her years of reading experience and reflecting on her own experiences, she probably played the role of a villainous cannon fodder. It's a pity she had only read a few chapters, and she didn't know what was next. She wondered if it was the same as what she had experienced in a previous life. Ying Bao, get up and eat. Chun Yang had already prepared breakfast, and she came over to dress Ying Bao, who was awake. Mom, where's Dad? Ying Bao asked. Your father went to your uncle's house before dawn. They're going to the market today and can't be late. After dressing Ying Bao in a short-sleeve sweatshirt, Chun Yang helped her tie her wristbands and let her get off the bed stove herself. Ying Bao quickly went to the latrine, checked on Xiaolu, and then washed up. Xiaolu had already been led to the courtyard. It huddled under the jujube tree, watching the little figure run back and forth with pitiful eyes. After hurriedly finishing breakfast, Ying Bao quickly said goodbye to her mother, grabbed a small bamboo basket in one hand, and led Xiaolu with the other to take a stroll outside. Chun Yang knew that her daughter would go out every morning and did not stop her, only reminding her not to go too far away. The children in the village got up early. Before the sun rose high, they would carry their baskets to the fields to pick dewy grass, which they would wash, chop, and feed to the pigs and sheep, which loved it. Ing Bao also took advantage of the cool morning to go to the wild. Not for cutting grass, she was grazing the deer, and by the way, she smuggled some shepherd's purse and 5 tripod plants for Xiaolu to eat. Xiaolu was clearly more agile than the day before, and the wound on its buttock seemed to have scabbed over. However, because the injury was sticky with bloody fur, it was not clear how well it had healed, and Xiaolu resisted anyone touching its wound, so Ing Bao continued to feed it the 5 tripod plants. It seemed Xiaolu really liked to eat this. It even gave up its fear and stretched out its tongue to lick Ing Bao's fingers. Ing Bao simply took out some more and watched it eat it all. After Xiaolu finished eating, it looked left and right, its tongue moving back and forth, seemingly thirsty. "Here, drink some water." Ing Bao took out a broken pot, which contained some pool water. Xiaolu drank it down in one gulp and happily started grazing again, wagging its short tail. "Ing Bao. You're grazing deer." Yuan Bao from her uncle's house ran over, still carrying his little school bag. Seeing him, Ing Bao's eyes lit up. "Yes, brother Yuan Bao, you are going to school this early." Yuan Bao nodded and came forward to touch Xiaolu's back. Ing Bao asked, "Brother Yuan Bao, can I go to school with you?" Yuan Bao shook his head. "Master doesn't allow." "I'll stay outside, won't go into the school." Ing Bao didn't give up. Yuan Bao blinked and said earnestly, "Master will beat your hand with a ruler." Ing Bao. Seeing his little cousin was not happy, Yuan Bao hesitated for a moment and said, "Or, you can watch from a distance, just don't get too close." The master did not like girls going to school, he would scold and drive them away whenever he saw them. "Okay." Ing Bao agreed immediately, led Xiaolu, and urged, "Let's hurry." Yuan Bao scratched his head, and had to follow her. The village school was a private school run by the Chen family, initially established for the education of the Chen family's children. But it was the only school in the surrounding villages, so as long as they paid tuition, children from other families could also enroll. The master of the village school was an old scholar, also surnamed Chen. He was nearly 70 but very conservative and firmly refused to admit female students. So in the Dongchen village and Shichen village, there was no girl who could read or write. Ing Bao parked Xiaolu about 50 feet away from the village school, pushed Yuan Bao who was still sticking to Xiaolu, and urged him to get going. Yuan Bao reluctantly left, and cautioned before leaving, "Don't run around, wait for me after school." Ing Bao nodded and waved at him, "Brother Yuan Bao, study well, teach me how to read after school, and I'll let Xiaolu play with you." "Okay." Yuan Bao nodded seriously, turned around and resolutely ran towards school. Ing Bao sat on the hillside, from where she could see the school, the slowly flowing Chuanha River, and Shigong Bridge over the river. As long as she crossed the bridge, she would reach Shichen village on the other side, where Chen Chomping's house was. In her previous life, all of her suffering after birth came from that family, and they were also the ones who ended her life. It's such a pitiful thought. Ing Bao turned her gaze, one hand stroking Xiaolu while observing the children who were rushing to school. Having eaten its fill, Xiaolu nestled at the feet of its young master, contentedly chewing its cud. A few curious schoolchildren sized up this strange pair, 2 of them even climbed up the dirt slope, reaching out to touch Xiaolu. Startled, Xiaolu sprang up and hid behind Ing Bao. Ing Bao stared icily at the 2 children. She recognized both of them. One was Chen Song, the youngest son of brother Chen Chongping, and the other was a child from the leading family of Shichen village. 7-year-old Chen Song was a year older than Yuan Bao and had just started learning. At the moment, he seemed dim-witted and harmless. Who could have imagined that such a child could harbor malicious intentions towards a 6 or 7-year-old girl 5 years later? But then again, as vengeful as she was, how could she let herself be wronged? In the cold winter of her 7th year, she arranged for Chen Song to fall into the icy water, ending up in an ice hole. Even though he was rescued in time, both of his legs became useless, rendering him a cripple. Of course, she didn't get off lightly either. She was brutally beaten by her own parents and grandmother with several rods broken on her body. She was almost beaten half to death and was left in a pile of hay, immobile for a month. During that month, no one bothered to get medical treatment for her or took care of her. She was neglected like a stray dog. Perhaps to avoid neighbors' criticism, they occasionally threw her a piece of black pancake and a scoop of water. Even in that state, the Chen family had deemed her as good as dead. Who would have thought that she would stubbornly hang on to life? To this day, Yingbao still doesn't understand why she's like a cockroach that can't be killed, managing to survive time and time again in dire situations. Is this deer yours? Chen Song asked. Yingbao ignored him, leading Xiaolu away. Chen Song, not miffed by the child's disregard, followed them and continued to ask, which family do you belong to? Can I lead the deer for a while? Yingbao scowled and coldly said, no. Chen Song frowned, preparing to say something, when one of the children by his side said, you can't just say no and expect us to listen. We want to lead the deer. And with that, he attempted to snatch the rope. Yingbao quickly dodged and cried out, Master. Your student is trying to steal my deer. The child was taken aback and involuntarily stepped back, hurriedly looking around. Sure enough, the master was standing at the entrance of the school, watching them from a distance. The child and Chen Song were terrified and ran downhill as if fleeing. Yingbao snorted and continued to stroll with Xiaolu. Just yesterday, the Jiang family had treated the master to deer meat. She didn't believe that the master could just stand by and watch his students bully a young child of barely a year old. After strolling for a while and finding no one around, she squatted down to shovel soil from the farmland or river ditch into the cave dwelling. When she had gathered enough, she stole some shepherd's purse and stuffed it into the basket before heading back. Xiaolu followed her closely, seemingly not needing to be led by the rope. Once home, Yingbao was soaked with sweat, completely exhausted. After all, she was not yet 2 years old, and her strength was limited. After working and walking so much, Yingbao felt on the brink of collapse. Where have you been going off to? Chun Yang came out of the kitchen and saw her daughter sprawled out on a rattan bed. Feeling her forehead, she asked, what's wrong? Did you get heat stroke? Yingbao shook her head, weakly saying, I woke up too early and I'm tired. Chun Yang chuckled, gave her daughter's nose a gentle pinch and said, I think you ran yourself ragged outside. Go to bed. When you wake up, I'll give you some braised pork. Her family had received a piece of deer meat yesterday, which she had stewed early in the morning. Today, she was going to braise it, making it crumbly and soft, perfect for her daughter as it wouldn't stick between her teeth. Yingbao clung to her mother's arm and softly said, Mum, you sleep too. With no other choice, Chun Yang lay down next to her daughter and fanned her with a straw fan. Chapter 12, Chapter 12, Chapter 12, Double Yolk Egg. Chapter 12, Chapter 12, Double Yolk Egg. At dusk, Jiang Sanlang returned home and handed 800 coins to his wife. This is the money from selling the deer. Chun Yen took the bag of money, poured out a pile of copper coins, and exclaimed, so much. Jiang Sanlang beamed with pride, and from his bosom drew several strings of coins. I also have 70-odd coins in change left here. Tomorrow, I'll go to the town and buy a few old hens for your confinement. Chun Yen bashfully turned away and locked the weighty copper coins into the box, whispering, there's still plenty of time. Why the rush? Not much time left. According to the midwife, we need to prepare early. They should prepare not only meals but also quilts, swaddling cloths, baby blankets, and diapers. Nothing could be neglected. And nothing could be neglected, it had to be done double, alas. Jiang Sanlang looked around and didn't see his daughter, so he asked, where's Yingbao? She went over to your brother's. Said she wanted to learn to read with you, Yingbao. Hey! Our daughter's got quite a knack, Jiang Sanlang laughed. How old is she to be so eager to learn already? Chun Yen gave him a reproachful look. Yingbao already learned some characters a few days ago. She even showed me by writing them with a twig. They were remarkably neat, even neater than the ones Yingbao writes. Really? Jiang Sanlang feigned disbelief. When she comes back, I'll have to test her. The couple chatted for a while. Seeing that it was getting late, Jiang Sanlang got up to bring his daughter home from his brother's house. At that moment, Yingbao was watching Yunbao recite the 3-character classic. Xiaolu lay quietly asleep at their feet. In the kitchen, Jiang Desai, who was washing dishes, found it strange. What had gotten into her son today? He was so diligent. As soon as he came back from school, he had started writing big characters and then reading. He hadn't rested for an hour. If it weren't for the dinner break in between, she would worry that her son's throat was going to split from all the reading. Jiang Debo and Jiang Laohan were quite relieved. Their younger son, grandson, was finally showing some ambition. Their family might even produce a child prodigy. In Jiang Dabo's eyes, a child prodigy was indeed an extraordinary figure, who in the future could not only teach in the village as a master but also become a shopkeeper in the county town or, at the very least, keep books for someone else. Wasn't the eldest son of Chen Laozuan of Shichen village, Chen Chongrong, just keeping books for a wealthy family? He made 20 to 30 taels of silver a year. Although his family still farmed and paid taxes, this large income made their life more than comfortable. When the time came, Yuan Bao could also keep books for people, earning money just by sitting in an office, no longer having to hoe fields or plow the land, and no longer exposed to the sun and rain. Oh, such a life would be most fulfilling. You can't blame Jiang Dabo for thinking this way. Every farmer who groveled for a living on the land had a dream of a better life in the county town. Jiang Liahan had a different perspective from his eldest son. He didn't think so far ahead, he simply felt that his grandson had finally started to show diligence, abandoning his previous laziness. This was a good thing. He's better than his third uncle when he was young. Jiang Laohan made a candid appraisal, although the third one is clever, he didn't use it on studying. Jiang Lu's wife gave her husband a look, compliment when you compliment, why raise one by stepping on another? Jiang Laohan coughed, and turned his head away awkwardly. In the side room, Yuan Bao finally finished reciting an entire 3-character classic. And turned to look at his little cousin. I'm done. Ying Bao immediately clapped her hands in praise. Brother Yuan Bao is so amazing. Tomorrow, I'll come with you to school early in the morning, and Xiaolu will walk with you. Yuan Bao chuckled, nodding emphatically, okay. At that moment, Jiang Sanlang walked into the room and waved at his daughter, Ying Bao, let's go home now. Ying Bao responded and led Xiaolu out of the room, following her father. Jiang Dabo stood at the door, his sullen face brightened with a chrysanthemum-like smile, and said to his niece, Ying Bao, come over to your uncle's house tomorrow to listen to Yuan Bao reading. Okay. Ying Bao enthusiastically agreed. Because she would soon be able to write openly and confidently. Although she learned to read in her past life, she is not good at writing, which has always been a great regret in her life. So, she decided to learn diligently from Yuan Bao and practice beautiful handwriting. When her younger brothers grow up, she'll teach them to write and read early, so they can become officials in the future and no longer be bullied by others. Days and nights passed like a fleeting horse. In a blink of an eye, more than 2 months had passed. The weather was getting colder, leaves started to fall, and the Cold Clothes Festival was drawing near. The apple sapling Ying Bao had planted had grown to 8 feet in height. Its trunk was sturdy, its branches robust, and it had become a bona fide miniature fruit tree. Jiang Sanlang and his wife marveled at this, exclaiming how incredibly fast the sapling had grown, outpacing even the speedy tree. The fawn at home had also grown significantly and was named Yu. It was sturdy and gentle, always following Ying Bao closely wherever she went, seeming to regard her as a companion. After the fall harvest, Jiang Sanlang bought 2 old hens and a rooster. With the 2 original chickens, they now had 5 chickens at home. Under Ying Bao's careful feeding, the 2 old hens had also started laying eggs. Each chicken was laying an egg per day, with every egg having double yolks. Jiang Sanlang and his wife were astonished. But they kept this to themselves, not even telling those in the main part of the house. Sanlang, isn't that strange? Chunyang sat at the edge of the Kong, sewing a baby bib while chatting with her husband. Those hens you bought were past their egg-laying stage, but after Ying Bao fed them, they started laying eggs again, and every egg has double yolks. That's because Ying Bao often digs earthworms to feed them, Jiang Sanlang said, sitting on a stool, cleaning his arrowheads one by one. Once it started snowing this winter, he would go rabbit hunting in South Mountain to provide a feast for his family. If they were lucky and caught a few more, they could take them to the market to exchange for some pork or mutton. Why aren't other people's chickens laying double-yolked eggs? Chunyang found it magical. The chickens in Big Brother's house are also fed earthworms. Doesn't Danny dig for them with Ying Bao every day? Now that it's getting cold, Danny told me that in their house, out of their 5 hens, they only find 2 eggs every 3 days. Jiang Sanlang had no response to that. But he couldn't admit that his daughter had magical abilities. With a smile to his wife, he teased, are you saying that you're going to lay double-yolked eggs like those old hens? Chuanyang's expression darkened as she spat out her husband's name, lightly kicking him with her foot. Nonsense. Jiang Sanlang chuckled, reaching out to touch her large belly. Our little Wyoke should come and see for themselves how your mom bullies your dad. You are not serious. Chuanyang turned the corner of her mouth upward in a smile, ignoring her husband. Jiang Sanlang stared seriously at his wife and sighed. Chuanyang, why do I find you getting more and more beautiful? Chuanyang blushed and turned her body away. I am an old woman now, what's beautiful about that? Jiang Sanlang clicked his tongue a few times, put down the bow and arrow in his hand and reached out to turn his wife towards him. Indeed, you've become prettier. Your skin is fair, almost as fair as Ingbao's. Freckles used to be here and here, now they're gone. Really? Chuanyang touched her face, finding it hard to believe. Which woman wouldn't care about her appearance? Aha. Jiang Sanlang nodded. Before, I thought your skin became fair because you don't go out much, but yesterday when I saw you standing next to my sister-in-law, she looked like a piece of charcoal compared to you. Jiang Sanlang's sister-in-law had given birth 2 years ago and had barely left the house to work for the last 1 or 2 years, spending most of her time looking after the child. Her skin color was always similar to his wife back then, and it should have stayed the same now. But when the two were compared yesterday, it gave Jiang Sanlang a serious visual shock. His wife was too beautiful, even more youthful than when she was young. Her complexion and skin did not resemble that of a village woman at all. Stop spouting nonsense, or my sister-in-law will scold you if she hears you. Chuanyang gave her husband a glare, but she felt delighted inside. They didn't have a copper mirror at home. The only dowry copper mirror was sold a few years ago, its value exchanged for bowls of soup which were poured into their stomachs. Thinking back, it seemed quite foolish. She used to just randomly twist her hair up in front of a basin of water when getting dressed, plus she didn't go out much because she was pregnant, so she didn't dress up much either. But after receiving her husband's compliment today, she was starting to look forward to it. Tomorrow is market day, I'll go to town and buy a copper mirror for you. Jiang Sanlang also realized his negligence. He apologetically hugged his wife. I'll also buy a few hairpins. You and our daughter can wear them, it'll look auspicious. All the flowers had withered by now, leaving the women's heads bare. He remembered that the women in the county town all wore silk flowers, which looked exactly like real flowers, bright and eye-catching. Chuanyang smiled with her mouth shut. Also buy a piece of cloth for Ingbao. While I have idle time now, I can make her a new cotton dress. Their daughter had been mostly wearing the old clothes passed down from Danny and Ernie since she came to their home. Even though she had embroidered and altered the old clothes as much as she could to make them look as close to new, or even prettier, they were still old clothes. So, Chuanyang always felt that she was shortchanging her daughter. Aha. Jiang Sanlang also agreed, it's indeed time to make new clothes for Ingbao. Chapter 13, Chapter 13, Chapter 13, Seeking Medical Help. Chapter 13, Chapter 13, Seeking Medical Help. In the West Room, Ingbao was leaning against the Kong, deep in thought. In her previous life, her 2 younger brothers were born on the 26th of September, and their mother said they were born at night. As their birth was quite unexpected and it was raining heavily, their father didn't have time to fetch a midwife from the town, so he had to ask for Aunt Wu from Shichen village. Although Aunt Wu had plenty of experience as a midwife, she was inevitably flustered because it was her first time encountering a case like their mother's. In the end, the twins were born safely, but one of the brothers was mentally impaired because of distress during birth. Their mother also suffered a lot. She had to lay in bed for 2 months, and was unable to bear children afterward. Tomorrow is the 26th of September, we need to ask father to fetch the town's midwife early in the morning. Ingbao muttered to herself, no matter what, I cannot let anything happen to my brother and mother again. But how can she convince her father that their mother is going to give birth tomorrow? After all, having a midwife come to the house is not easy, and the consultation fee is quite substantial. And since their mother showed no signs of labor, if they asked the midwife to come and she didn't go into labor, wouldn't it be a waste of silver taels? Well, if it's a waste, then so be it. She couldn't risk her mother and brother's lives just to save some money. Ingbao crawled into her quilt, closed her eyes, and entered the cavern. Now, the open area by the pond was covered in a thick layer of soil. This fertile soil had recently been shoveled in little by Ingbao, and now it was planted with wheat, rice, soybeans, and several water chestnut plants, as well as a patch of green vegetables and shepherd's purse. The wheat, rice, and soybeans had just sprouted, while the green vegetables and shepherd's purse were growing rapidly. The previously planted water chestnut plants had grown and produced water chestnuts as big as eggs, crunchy and sweet. But no one here had ever seen such large water chestnuts. As it was autumn, Ingbao didn't dare to take them out, she had to replant them one by one. Moreover, on the other side of the black soil, many fruit trees were planted, including jujube, pear, peach, chestnut, and apricot trees. The fruit saplings had grown to half a foot tall, and could be transplanted out next spring. The 2 apple trees that were transplanted earlier were growing well, so these saplings should be no different. However, where to plant them required careful consideration. 20 or 30 fruit tree saplings certainly couldn't all be planted in the yard, not even in the front or back of the house, as that would be too conspicuous. Planting them on North Mountain was out of the question. That land was part of the allotment, and when her father got older, he would have to return half of it to the public. If he passed away, the entire allotment would have to be returned. She didn't want to make an effort just to benefit others in the future. Therefore, the only place left was South Mountain, where her father's permanent farmland was located, with dozens of acres of mountain land. Moreover, South Mountain had the advantage of high terrain and few rocks, so even if there was a major flood in the future, it wouldn't reach the top. In the future she would encourage her parents to build a house on South Mountain, in order to avoid the great flood a few years from now. Ingbao approached the rock wall and carefully observed the growth of these crystal-clear objects. The part that had been scraped off hadn't grown back, which made her feel a bit disappointed. This meant that once these wooden Gs were used up, there would never be any more. Ingbao scratched her head, feeling conflicted. The fact that the hen at home was willing to lay eggs and that Xiaolu was growing well was thanks to the Wudingzi. Even when she cut her finger with a reaping hook last time, it was the juice of the Wudingzi that she used for treatment. The effect was very obvious, with just 2 hours leaving no trace, proving it was a good thing. Since this was a non-renewable good thing, she would have to use it sparingly in the future. The next day, Ingbao got up before dawn, dressed, folded her quilt, and ran to her parents' room. That's right, Ingbao had her own room now. Because her brother was about to be born, and she was a sensible girl, she couldn't keep sharing a bed with her parents. So, at her strong request, her father had made a kong in the west room for her to live in. Ingbao peeked out from under the curtain and called to the room, "Dad." Jiang Sanlang was putting on his shoes, and seeing his daughter coming in so early, he thought something had happened. "What's the matter?" Mr. Jiang hurried over. Ingbao, leading her father by the hand, tugged him outside. "Come quickly, I have something to tell you." Mr. Jiang followed his daughter into the western chamber and asked, "What does Ingbao want to tell Daddy?" Ingbao thought for a moment with her fingers crossed, then said in a low voice, "Dad, I had a dream last night." Mr. Jiang laughed and rubbed his daughter's small head. "Did you have a nightmare?" Ingbao shook her head and said earnestly, "I dreamed that mother is going to give birth to my little brother tonight, and she bled a lot. Dad, you should rush to get a midwife to come home." Mr. Jiang was taken aback and instinctively thought his daughter's dream was absurd. Then he suddenly remembered that his wife's due date was approaching, and that last time his daughter had accurately predicted that her mother was carrying a boy. Hence, his daughter seemed to possess some intuitive abilities. He grew a bit panicked, but resolved to make a decision. "All right, I'll go to town right away." Mr. Jiang hurried to the east chamber to check on his wife. Seeing that she was not exhibiting any abnormalities, he breathed a sigh of relief. "Chunyang, I'm going to town, you stay home and don't go wandering off," Mr. Jiang instructed. Having propped herself up into a sitting position, Chunyang asked in surprise, "What are you doing so early in town? The sky isn't even light yet." "It will be soon." Mr. Jiang turned around and left. Once they were outside, he saw that it was raining and pretty heavily at that, so he went back to get his hat and raincoat, which hung on the wall. With those in hand, he proceeded to his elder brother's house. He needed to ask his sister-in-law to come over and help. With his wife about to give birth and their daughter so young, it would be unwise to not have an adult in the house who could handle the situation. Seeing her father hurrying around, Ingbao quickly reminded him, "Dad, it's rainy and the roads are slippery. Be careful. The midwife is old, she can't walk in the mud. Go borrow a donkey cart from Uncle Zhang at the village." Mr. Jiang smacked his forehead. Ah, how could he have forgotten about that? Waving at his daughter, he said, "Got it, Dad will take care of it. You stay home with your mother, don't run off." Saying this, he dashed into the rain. With a sigh, Yingbao went to the kitchen to feed Xiaolu, and let out the chickens from their coop. Seeing that the water in the tank was nearly gone, she let the water out of the cave till the big tank was filled. Then, after thinking for a while, she retrieved some dry firewood from behind the kitchen stove, and took 2 old clay bowls and a clay jar from the cabinet. She stored all these things in the cave for potential future needs. Sister Zhou, Mr. Jiang's sister-in-law, arrived soon after, holding an umbrella and a pot of freshly cooked rice porridge. "Aunt Zhou." Yingbao greeted her warmly. Sister Zhou smiled and asked, "Yingbao, why are you up so early? Where's your mother?" "Mother is inside, she'll be out soon." Yingbao replied lightly. "Then I'll go see her." Sister Zhou began to walk towards the east chamber. Yingbao, seeing Aunt Zhou come to accompany her mother, felt a sense of relief. She put on the small hat her dad had made for her, wore her wooden clogs, and took Xiaolu out of the house to do its business. Xiaolu obediently followed, stepping into the rain. Once Xiaolu was finished, Yingbao cleaned its body with a torn cloth and began to shovel the chicken manure from the coop. This was usually her father's chore, but since her father was busy today, she had to take it on herself. She didn't want her pregnant mother to do it. After cleaning the chicken manure and sweeping up, she finally entered the kitchen. Just then, Sister Zhou came in, expressing her surprise. "Oh my, you're so diligent. I was going to ask your sister Danny to do it, but you've already swept everything clean." Yingbao laughed. "Usually, it's Mom and Dad who do it. But Dad is out today and Mom is not well, so I just tidied up a bit." Sister Zhou took out 2 clay bowls and 2 pairs of chopsticks from the cabinet. "Yingbao, Auntie brought some porridge, it's still hot. Come and have some with your mother." "Okay, thank you Auntie Zhou." Yingbao, hopping about happily, followed Sister Zhou through to the main room to have porridge. Chunyang, at this time, expressed her helplessness to Sister Zhou. "Don't bother yourself with this, I already promised I won't go out." Sister Zhou then chuckled and said, "This morning, Mr. Jiang rushed over and told me that you might be going into labor, so he asked me to come and check on you. I had just cooked some porridge in the morning and felt that you might have trouble getting around, especially with it raining outside. I didn't want you to slip and fall, so I brought some over. There's no way I would give birth yet." Chunyang felt somewhat embarrassed. She rubbed her belly and hesitated, "But I have been feeling my belly tighten and then loosen intermittently for the last couple of days. I still can't tell if it's the baby kicking or not." Chapter 14, Chapter 14, Chapter 14, Younger Brother is Born. Chapter 14, Chapter 14, Younger Brother is Born. Zhou family served some porridge to her sisters and Yingbao, saying, "This isn't a baby's kick, it's clearly the start of labor." Good thing Sanlang was quick to fetch a midwife this morning. Upon hearing this, Chunyang became a little nervous, "But, my stomach doesn't hurt at all, does it?" Zhou family put a chopstick in her hand. "When your stomach truly hurts, that means the baby is about to come out. What you're experiencing now is the start of contractions." It was still raining, and it was getting heavier. Jiang Sanlang borrowed a donkey cart with a canopy from Chen village and rushed to Chuana town. When he reached the old midwife's house, he saw 2 people standing at the door, wearing raincoats and conical bamboo hats. One of them was even holding an umbrella. It seemed like they were also here for medical help. Jiang Sanlang felt a bit uneasy, fearing that the midwife would have been asked to go help someone else first. Unfortunately, his fears were realized. As soon as the door to the midwife's house opened, the 2 men were the first to walk in, asking the midwife to deliver their babies. Jiang Sanlang's mind was buzzing. Without caring about anything else, he quickly bowed to the midwife. "Midwife Zhang, my wife is also going into labor today. Could you please come and take a look? She's carrying twins and it's her first birth." As he spoke, he couldn't help but choke up. Jiang Sanlang felt scared. There's a saying that women giving birth is like going through the ghost gate. If they make it through, they survive. If they can't, well, he didn't dare to think about it. The 2 men who arrived before him immediately glared at Jiang Sanlang. "What's the matter with you? Don't you know there's a line?" Of course, Jiang Sanlang knew. But when it came to the life and death of his wife and child, what did it matter if he was the bad guy for once? Midwife Zhang was familiar with Jiang Sanlang. After all, Chuanhe town wasn't that big, and there were only a dozen or so villages in it. From the 70-year-old seniors to the 3-year-old children in the village, she could at least recognize everyone. And since she's been providing women with medical care all year round, she knew exactly who has kids and whose wife had been barren for many years. "Has the bloody show started with your wife?" Midwife Zhang asked. Jiang Sanlang paused but still answered honestly, "No." The man next to him was even more furious. "My wife's water has broken, and your wife hasn't even seen the bloody show yet." Midwife Zhang had no choice but to apologize to Jiang Sanlang. "His situation is more urgent. How about I come over after I finish delivering his baby?" Jiang Sanlang dropped his head in dismay and could only nod. "Thank you, midwife. Can I wait here for you?" Midwife Zhang nodded and left with the other men. As they got to the door, the midwife voiced again, "Delivering a child can take a long time. You may have to wait quite a while, and I can't guarantee that I'll be able to get to your house today." Jiang Sanlang sincerely said, "Midwife, no matter how long it takes, I'll wait as long as you're willing to come." "All right then." Midwife Zhang nodded. Then, Jiang Sanlang used the donkey cart to take the midwife to that house, and he squatted at the door, silently waiting. He ended up waiting for several hours. Cold wind carried the autumn rain, pitter-pattering non-stop until late afternoon, with no sign of stopping. Ing Bao stood at the door, anxiously looking out, but her father did not return. "Auntie, my father still hasn't come back." She looked pitifully at Zhou family. "Should we send someone to the town to check?" Zhou family was also a little panicked. Sanlang's wife's stomach was tightening more and more. "The baby may come tonight. Ing Bao, watch your mother at home. I'll call your grandparents to decide what to do." "Okay, auntie. You go first. I'll watch over mother." Ing Bao nodded seriously. Zhou family went home with an umbrella and immediately told her father-in-law and mother-in-law about Chuanyang's condition. On hearing this, Jiang Lu couldn't sit still, and slapped his thigh. "Well, what are we waiting for? Let's quickly send eldest to West Village to ask Aunt Wu for help. No matter whether Sanlang comes back or not, we can't just sit around and do nothing. And let's second go to town to see why Sanlang has been delayed for so long." "All right, mother, I'll send Dalong to fetch Aunt Wu," said Mrs. Zhou. With this, elder brother Jiang hurried over to Shichen village, but had just arrived at Shigong Bridge when he encountered his younger brother returning with a donkey cart. As it turned out, there was no need to go for Aunt Wu, because Jiang Sanlang had invited Dr. Zhang. That night, Ing Bao lay on the Kong in the west room, listening to the stirrings in the room to the east with her eyes closed. First, her mother's moans echoed through the house, and not long after, a robust cry from a baby joined them. After a short wait, another baby's cry followed. Aunt then exclaimed joyfully, one more son. Sanlang, you will have to give out 20 red eggs tomorrow when sharing the good news with the relatives." Jiang Sanlang laughed heartily. 20 it is." Ing Bao buried her face in her hands, her tears flowing like a rushing river. She could see her brother again. In this lifetime, she would protect them with all her might. She wouldn't let her parents die early, or let her brother meet that tragic end. After escaping from the provincial governor's residence years ago, she eventually found her brothers after much inquiry in Qinchuan County. They were 17 years old and in the prime of youth. Yet, one was mentally challenged, and the other was gravely ill, eking out a living in Jiang family village under the care of their eldest cousin, living a harsh life. Later, she took them to the county town, gathered a bit of silver by selling ice from the grotto in the summer, curing her brother's illness, and purchasing a small courtyard, planning to gather some more silver to find wives for them. Just when she thought their lives were improving and their troubles were finally behind them, the Han couple suddenly barged into their house with a horde of people. Those people knocked down her brothers who were protecting her and forcibly dragged her into the house. Then, she was strangled to death by her birth parents. She could only imagine what had happened to her two brothers after her demise. It probably wasn't anything good. Before her death, she saw with her own eyes the vicious force with which her brothers were beaten over their heads, blood streaming down their faces. Every time she thought of that, it was as if her heart was being crushed. Fortunately, she was now reborn, and none of these terrible things had happened yet. In this life, she would do everything possible to prevent calamity from befalling her family. She also needed to carefully plan a rich and peaceful life for her parents and brothers. As for that family, as long as they didn't provoke her, she would let bygones be bygones, considering it as repaying their act of giving her life. Bao, quick! Come with me to see your little brothers. Jiang Sanlang walked into the room holding a lamp. Giddy with joy, he picked up his daughter and headed towards the eastern room. In the eastern room, 2 lamps were lit, and their grandmother, their aunt, and the midwife were all there. They were joyfully comparing the 2 babies wrapped in armor. Oh, they look alike. Look at their long eyebrows and eyes, they'll definitely be handsome when they grow up. Bao stretched her neck to look, smiling so widely her mouth could barely close. She asked her father, which one is the elder brother, and which one is the younger? Jiang Sanlang pointed to a baby with a slightly round face and said, "This is your younger brother, and that's your elder brother." Bao chuckled endlessly. How wonderful, her younger brother's face was rosy and vibrant, he certainly seemed healthy, definitely as smart as her elder brother. In her previous life, her younger brother was mentally impaired due to asphyxiation at birth. Although he wasn't naturally idiotic. He was cute in his silliness, very good-looking, and always fond of following her around, gifting her all the dragonflies and butterflies he caught. When they were 3 years old, upon seeing the Han family pestering them, her little brother courageously stood in front of her, stretching his short arms to protect her, even used his head to hit the Han family. Every time she recalled those past events, Bao couldn't help but feel her eyes well up with tears. Part 1 of the series ends here. Thank you for watching and listening. If you find it interesting, please give us a like, a comment and a subscription so that we have the motivation to make the next videos.